Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. Today we're talking about the chaos in Mexico. If you've logged on to X at any time in the last 24 hours, you've probably seen the pictures and videos coming in.
And if you didn't know, we did move from Vancouver, Canada to Mexico, but we're located close to Mexico City, so it's a bit less tense over here, but also sending condolences and prayers to everybody who is affected. I do know some subscribers, at least on our last stream, did say they were either going to Puerto Vallarta or Jalisco, or that they were planning on going there.
And you're originally from Mexico City.
Yes, I'm from Mexico City.
That being said, this week's schedule is a little bit different. Monday and Wednesdays, geopolitics. Tuesday and Friday this week will be all about the Alberta independence movement on our live videos. Today's a little bit different. We'll try to get into international geopolitics, but it's mainly going to focus on what's going on in Mexico because it's so close to us. And it is the biggest thing happening in international news right now.
And usually we do read comments at the end of each section, but because this will be a very long section, we'll probably interrupt every so often to read all your comments. So do leave them, and also let us know if you're in Mexico or if you were planning to come to Mexico, how everything's going as well. I will say hello first to, and these messages won't be able to appear on screen, but I'll say hello to Rafa, who says, hello, good and explosive evening to my favorite far-right couple.
And he's our longest follower, so we really do appreciate
Hello, Rafa.
all the
Hopefully
support.
you're okay as well, because where he's located is, I think, close to dangerous things.
Yeah,
So
we actually have two channels as well. Our original channel started in English, but it's now a Spanish channel. And then we have this channel, which is our English channel. So quite a few of our followers are from Mexico.
Yes. And Latino Slant, hello, Polly, says, hey guys, I'll be live tonight, 8 p.m. Would love to have you both on as guests to go over this. How can we connect? Have a great stream. Thank you so much, and we would love to go on. I do have my show in Spanish later today, but depending, I guess, on when this ends, you can always email us or DM us through X, through our account. It's @NatAndTheGuy. I can show it up.
Yeah, this show usually lasts about 3 hours now. I'm seeing we're having, and then your show lasts another 2 hours. So it's like 5 hours of streaming we typically do. Yeah. But any other day, we're pretty much available.
Yes, but thank you so much. And we would love to come on as well. Nan says, howdy. Hi there, friends and neighbors. Hello. And says, terrible what's going on down there. And yes, but not completely unexpected, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people aren't realizing that this is just reminiscent of some years ago when this was already happening already.
Let's get into some of the stories and then we'll go back to the comments.
I'll just finish saying hi to people.
Let's get into some of the stories and then we'll go to the comments.
Okay, let me move this one. So, of course, starting out with Latin America, which is what's going on right now. And of course, Mexico has been rocked by violence after the capture of El Mencho, the capture and ending of El Mencho, which is a cartel boss from the CJNG. And from MAHA Kitty initially says U.S. Embassy in Mexico is still advising U.S. citizens to avoid any unnecessary movements because of ongoing violence.
Well, and we have a ton of clips today. We try to put them in somewhat of an order here. There was a list of a lot of fake clips and a lot of AI clips or a lot of older clips. So we tried to go through our list as best as we could. We had to take out like 10 clips because we weren't sure if they were authentic. So most of the clips we have should be verified at this point.
Or at least half verified.
Unrest in Mexico. Mexico's Secretariat of Defense says the army has killed a top cartel leader known as El Mencho. The Secretariat mentions coordination with U.S. intelligence. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico still advising U.S. citizens to avoid any unnecessary movements because of ongoing violence there.
Yeah, and it was very intense yesterday. It's dying down somewhat today, but it is still fairly intense. There's still also a warning out there.
And even if it's kind of a bit more quiet today, it doesn't mean it can't ramp up. And we have seen that. Sometimes they take a few days off to rest and then they start going again, because this was one of the most wanted, if not the most wanted cartel leaders in recent history, at least. And this capture also activated a lot of different cells that they have all around Mexico and through different states as well.
Yeah, it was very surprising because I actually kind of expected things to heat up along the border first. And it's actually happening in the tourist cities that are actually fairly close to Mexico City. It's a couple-hour drive.
Which is where the CJNG has or Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación has a lot of that's where they started and also where they have spread out too. Mexico is divided into different cartel territories as well. So they each have dominance over. That's why some states are very affected right now and some states aren't as much, because that is probably territory of somebody else.
Yeah.
However, a lot of clips are coming out about Claudia Sheinbaum, who for the longest time has been speaking about Mexican sovereignty and how important that is and how the U.S. isn't coming in. And yet, what was it, about 2 weeks ago, the Mexican Senate approved in full, in its totality, nobody said no and there were no no's in this proposal of bringing in 19, and I put that in air quotes because we're still unsure if it was just 19 U.S. Navy SEALs to help training, and then 2 weeks later they capture one of the most evasive, in a way, or one of the most protected cartel leaders in Mexico.
Yeah, let's kind of put it a little bit more simply here. The Mexican government has been cooperating heavily behind the scenes with the American government, whether that's taking new military equipment, buying new military equipment, massive cargo planes to ship military gear around the country, as well as allowing special forces advisors into Mexico to kind of advise through their intelligence where to strike. That being said, because we've been following what's happening in Ukraine so much, the same kind of reports of intelligence advisors on the ground actually means there's probably a huge U.S. troop presence behind the scenes here.
And yet Claudia Sheinbaum had been able to continue and use Trump's essentially Kissinger doctrine, where she was allowed to still disparage to the U.S. and say, we don't want U.S. involvement coming in, while in the background or behind the scenes, there was a lot more cooperation. And yet a few months ago, and this is a clip that has been circling for the right reason, well, for the wrong reasons, but rightly so, from Marty up north, quote, Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico's president, says using force against the cartels would violate human rights. Do you want me to read the subtitles or no?
Regresar a la guerra contra el narco no es opción. No
Yeah,
es
you're going to need
opción.
to read the subtitles, otherwise don't play it.
Okay, so it says returning to a war against the narcos is not an option.
Primero, porque
First,
está fuera del
because
marco de
it's
la ley.
outside the framework
Todos
of the
estos de la
law.
derecha
Pause
que se
it.
llenan-
Please turn down the volume, and then you can read it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hear you.
Okay. All of these on the right wing that fill their
de la
mouths
palabra,
or
las
words
palabras
with the
Estado
rule of
de
law.
derecho. Y
If you
defiende
can
And
turn it down all
defend-
the way, that would be perfect.
Well, because we do have some Spanish listeners. And defend the war against the narco. The war against the narco is outside the law because, as I said, or have said on several occasions, it is permission to end anybody without any trial. And that in Mexico, nobody or very few are in agreement with. It is outside the framework of the law. And secondly, it did not serve any other purpose than to increase endings in Mexico and the level of violence.
Okay, you can kind of leave it here. It's not coming. I don't think it's coming across well doing the reading.
Well, you added the clip, so. But that's why I wanted to have it play a little bit in the background at least. But there are multiple, obviously, opinions floating around the internet and on X. And as you mentioned, there's also a lot of fake clips out there, which I will warn people kind of against. Check the comments, check to see if anybody has been able to verify it. Go ahead.
No, nothing.
Okay.
I will say for this last clip, if you can go back to the last clip, that'd be perfect.
No, I closed it.
Oh, okay. On the last clip, what she says in that speech is basically she doesn't want to go after cartels because that would be violating their human rights. This clip is not going to go down well internationally. This is a previous statement she's made. She's also had the slogan, hugs, not bullets. So they've taken a firm stance in her administration to kind of more or less align with the cartels rather than go after them. Trump has put a lot of pressure on her. So I think that's kind of putting her into contradiction with some of the deals she may have made before.
And that whole slogan of hugs, no bullets comes from her predecessor, AMLO, who did want to do it in a more in cooperation with all the cartels to avoid the violence that we saw with presidents past that did have these huge outsized wars against the cartels and ended up in a lot more violence. But clearly the strategy has not worked because it's only increased as well during his presidency and now hers as well in just the past year and a bit that she's been president.
Yeah, you have to think with this slight uprising that has kind of happened, Trump's got to be looking at this and thinking how he can use this to his advantage. We know in the summertime there's going to be massive ICE protests. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump sends in a lot of ICE officers into Los Angeles or some of these other cities to kind of provoke these ICE protests, and then have Sheinbaum hit strategic targets in Mexico to kind of have an uprising in Mexico again, because it will really sway the midterms in the United States, and it really shows the contradiction of the left in the United States and how they're protesting ICE and illegal immigration.
Well, it would help prove a point that he is trying to get rid of at least some of the same people, if not most of the same people, that are doing the violence that we're seeing right now in Mexico. It would help prove the point that what he's doing goes a lot farther than just in the U.S.
Well, I've been watching a lot of analysis from U.S. generals on how this would go down if they want to go after the cartels and things like this. And one of the big fears is the cartels will take on the role of freedom fighters. The only way to avoid that in their analysis was specifically for Trump to pressure the cartels through the Mexican government. And then there's kind of a go-between and a disconnect between the U.S. government provoking the cartels. And it looks much more like the Mexican government is the one kind of going after him. So he has plausible deniability there. And he can really win the framing war of what's happening on the ground.
And yet there's still a lot of unanswered questions and ongoing questions about Claudia Sheinbaum, what she knew, what she didn't know. She was on tour in some other state, and then when she was asked directly what was happening, because it had happened a few years earlier, she wasn't able to respond properly. She wasn't able to give a presidential address yesterday. And today there was not enough information given, and it seems like she didn't really know what was happening.
Well, she got evacuated to, I believe it was
Allegedly.
A ship or aircraft carrier yesterday for her own safety. She came back in the morning to do her daily address, but she has to be under lock and key here.
But everything looks very murky, and Dinesh D'Souza says, quote, "The violence in Mexico helps us answer a question that many of us have long had about Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum."
Well, and a lot of the clips he goes through here we have, but it's mainly the analysis at the end that I think is pretty good here.
The overdue neutralization of a cartel boss, El Mencho, by the Mexican armed forces in conjunction with the U.S. has lighted parts of Mexico in flames. Here's what the cartels did to a Costco in Puerto Vallarta.
They don't want us talking about this.
Okay, well, we can leave that clip if you want.
Well, I gotta check if our internet is still working. Hold on.
Well, it has to be working if the live stream's going on. Oh, no, it went down here.
That's what I wanted to check. Wait, are we still on?
I have no idea.
Hold on one second. Technical difficulties, apparently.
My internet's down.
Oh, great. Well, it's telling me here we're fine, but write a message if you can see us. Please.
Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, it's still on.
Okay, good.
Okay, and let's go back to that clip if we can.
Yes, let's see if it loads now. So
And I would have said if the cartels were going to start targeting things, targeting American businesses like Costco rather than a lot of local businesses and a lot of local civilians, they're very likely to turn a lot of the locals against them because they went after banks, gas stations, basic infrastructure within the cities. I mean, they went after everything yesterday. It was not controlled in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I'll add to that in a bit because there were some strategic spots that were hit for very specific reasons.
And this is a local Mexican airport. Check out the president of Mexico, this is Claudia Sheinbaum, besieged by reporters. Notice something interesting? She's in an open car, sticking her head out.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if she knew the gravitas of the situation yesterday when that clip actually happened, because that happened fairly almost right away after some of these strikes happened. And even when I told you, you're like, no, this is common. This happens in Mexico. And then I said, I don't think this is common because more and more reports started coming out, more and more businesses, whether it was banks, gas stations. The gas station clip was crazy. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I don't know if she knew the gravitas of the situation right there.
Well, and that is incredibly concerning because if she didn't know and it wasn't her as the leader of the country and the leader of the armed forces essentially the one that ordered it and it wasn't fully aware of how it went down or when it went down, that is increasingly worrying.
Well, and she also said right there in that particular clip, a little bit later on, that we're going to give a statement tomorrow about this on the morning press conference. When if you're there, you either need to evacuate or you should give a statement if you're in public there, saying we're going to wait till tomorrow, when the country, it really looked like this thing could have spread yesterday and the whole country was going to burn. Luckily, I wouldn't say they had it under control, but only in certain cartel-controlled areas did things go down.
But that was about 9 to 13 states. So unconfirmed how many actually were directly linked to the message that the CJNG was trying to send, and how many were just opportunists and other cartels that decided to also start doing things just because they could, because it was a great time to start doing things.
Yeah, and I will kind of say this, and I don't know which way to go on this. This could have been completely organic, because the American military is kind of poking the cartels right now by going after their leaders. The other option is, of all the different cartels, I always thought the CJNG was the one that possibly was most connected with the American military. There was a lot of reports coming out of whether it was training operations going on with that particular cartel by ex-special forces. If you look at a lot of the equipment they have, it looks like it may have been imported to Mexico through the Barack Obama administration with the Fast and the Furious operation. If you don't know what the Fast and the Furious operation is, that's not the movie I'm talking about here. It's actually when tens of thousands of weapons were transported into Mexico and given to the cartels.
But also the CJNG was very almost openly known for financing a lot of the campaigns for more local governors along the states where they operate from Morena, which is the current party in power right now, and the one that said that they wanted to hug and not give bullets to the cartel. So that information is also important, given the context that Claudia Sheinbaum seems to know nothing about what happened when she was asked by the public that she was visiting. And that was most of the things that people were talking about when she was sticking her head out the car, which is insane too. But let's continue seeing what actually happened. From Matt Wallace, quote, CJNG cartel members have launched mass attacks across Mexico after their leader was taken out in a special operation. And this was, again, a way of, I think, sending a message, but also retaliating. El Mencho was a lot older than all the pictures that they're showing. Those are very old pictures, actually, from him. He was pretty elderly and in poor health, allegedly. So he, it seems like, didn't have full control of the cartel anymore. And it seems he was a figurehead position more than anything, but still very important for just the narrative in general.
Yeah, now we're going to get into some clips of some of the devastation that was actually happening yesterday. When you start going after grocery stores, and this is where a lot of people are going to get their water, food, stuff like this, but let's go into it.
And I will warn, there might be some clips that have been shown to be AI, but still some of them are true. So I guess the compilation is important.
And you can pause it for a quick second. And oh, that was the entire video. Yeah, you can see there was burning buses there. A lot of the times they were putting buses or large trucks in the middle of the road, lighting them on fire. This would create a roadblock. The next day when they got more organized, it looks like they were actually digging trenches so they wouldn't have to have permanent vehicles located there.
No, it was the same day. That was yesterday, because today, I have a lot to say about this, but the government did actually come out to say, and this is the problem with a lot of the AI clips that we're seeing, some of them have been released by cartel members themselves or have been used to propagate the narrative that this is maybe a lot worse, or to create panic amongst the people. A lot of the clips from the airport have been disputed. There's conflicting information, but that just goes to show how little of control the government actually has on the information that is going out. The government has come out to say that roads and airports are open today, which is not true. It has been debunked by people on the ground, showing that there's still burnt vehicles all over the place and they cannot access the roads, they cannot go anywhere. And at the same time, the government says everything's working. Airports have both said that there's flights canceled, but then there's no flights canceled. So the lack of preparation and the lack of actually implementing a strategy, if they were going to go through with this, it just shows the level of incompetence and why this is actually going on the way it is in Mexico.
Yeah, well, yesterday was pretty crazy because the government was coming out and said, oh, it's under control. The military's been deployed. Not much is happening. They kept trying to downplay it and said they had it secured. And then there was reports coming out from the ground from local officials and civilians that just completely contradicted what the federal government is saying. The fact that X is up and running and the information actually gets out so quick, it's hard for the government to actually build a narrative unless it's a true narrative. And what they wanted to build was something that just wasn't true yesterday. That's why today, when things did started simmering down, I really had to verify it from multiple sources. It's still not under control like the government's saying, but it is a lot better than it was yesterday.
Yes, yesterday was the initial reactions. But again, I will say we have seen this. If you're Mexican, we've seen similar things play out before where one day it gets really bad. Then it kind of calms down. And then once they feel the public is not as panicked, they go at it again, or people's heads start showing up in places, or there's people, hanging from bridges with like these signs saying why they did what they did. So I would expect it to continue, which is also worrying because Mexico is one of the places where the World Cup is supposed to happen in a few months. That's in that state, Jalisco.
Yeah, why don't we go into a couple more clips, and then I have some other kind of breaking information about this as well.
From Anti-Ape-S, I'm going to have to say, quote, President Trump confirmed on Sunday that Mexican President Sheinbaum rejected his proposal to deploy U.S. troops to Mexico to help combat powerful bad people.
Yeah, and this was, he's offering to deploy troops again. There's been multiple times he's offered, she's outright refused. Even just having a few intelligence officers in the country to help kind of direct Mexican military, she's been really resistant against, although in the end she has cooperated.
Mexico saying that I offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to take care of the cartels. She wants to know, is that true? Do you think I'm going to answer that question?
That's why I'm asking. We'll see.
I will answer it. It's true. Absolutely. Because they are horrible people that have been killing people left and right, that have been, they made a fortune on selling drugs and destroying our people. We lost 300,000 people last year to fentanyl and drugs. They're bad news. Yeah, that's true. If Mexico wanted help with the cartels, we would be honored to go in it. So Mexico saying that I
Yeah, and he's still saying we would be honored to go in. That being said, most of the forces of the American military are currently deployed in the Middle East around Iran. Now, not all of it, but to have a major operation like this in Mexico, I think Sheinbaum's in a little bit of a situation here. If she had made a deal in the past with the cartels, that deal is now broken. Her only option is to really kind of go to the U.S. Even if she asks for help now, there's going to be either a delay on it, or they're not going to be able to give as much help until they get that deployment back from the Middle East. And the question is, are they even going to get a lot of those troops back from the Middle East? Because if that conflict kind of ramps up, they're actually going to need more troops from the U.S. going over to the Middle East. I don't think Trump wants a war in the Middle East because that's potentially a forever war, and his base does not like these forever wars in the Middle East. Something happening on their own border, like what's happening in Mexico now, is a lot easier to kind of justify to his base and for the long-term strategic financial implications when it comes to Mexico-U.S. relations.
But also Mexico and Sheinbaum is in a lot of a pickle because the numbers of how many CJNG members there are versus, and like people on the street that they have hired to also just continue to go about with violence versus how much military Mexico has, it's only a difference of about 10,000 members. Or like, it's insane how similar the numbers they have are. So what does that mean for how much the military can actually be deployed from just Mexico and how much they can deal with it?
Well, yeah, and you also have to realize if it was a straight up conflict against a Mexican military going against the cartels have a major advantage because they can blend into the civilian population. Well, the Mexican military are kind of like sitting ducks. They're in uniforms. It's very obvious where they're at, so you can really plan out and strike them a lot easier. That being said, a big advantage comes if the U.S. comes in working with intelligence. And they've been having massive intelligence gathering since Trump's got in, which has been about over a year. The rumor was when a lot of the aircraft carriers were sitting off the coast for Venezuela, they were also gathering intelligence through drones and satellites of Mexico in real time, getting every square inch of the ground and where strategic targets would be.
And also, allegedly, because we have the military and we have the National Guard, which is different than the U.S. National Guard. It's a thing that AMLO, the former president, Claudia Sheinbaum's boss, essentially, implemented when he came in because he wanted to get rid of the military. So he put them in charge of building an airport, for example, or building the railroad, which means the actual defense forces have diminished while the numbers have grown. A lot of them are occupied taking care of airports or guarding train stations, etc., not actually doing military jobs or operations or training even in certain cases. And there have been reports also coming out that, for example, in the Mexico City airport, usually the National Guard is dressed in military uniform. They have been allegedly instructed to come in plainclothes as well as in other states of Mexico. So we are seeing a response from the military, maybe, of officers in plainclothes to blend in maybe a bit better.
Yeah.
But I'm still worried about the actual training that they haven't fully undergone since they changed it.
Tactically, and I've already said it once on today's show, but I'll kind of say it again because the importance of this can't be overstated. Trump having cooperation with the Mexican military and the Mexican government is huge. It adds a little bit of plausible deniability, and it makes it look like Trump isn't striking directly. So it really creates a lot of chaos and confusion with trying to plot the framework of how the general public is going to see this, especially when the cartels are kind of running around burning every single business in the city. It does not come off well for the cartels trying to frame this and frame themselves as freedom fighters. It's just not going to happen.
And initially also when the Mexican government released the initial statement and the security apparatus said that they had captured and ended El Mencho, they made no mention of cooperation with U.S. intelligence or with the U.S. at all. They just congratulated the people that were in the operation, allegedly. But then the U.S. did come out, and a lot of reports did come out from the U.S. here, for example, from Caroline Leavitt herself, saying that, quote, the United States provided intelligence support to Mexican government in order to assist with an operation in Tapalpa, Jalisco, Mexico, in which Nemesio El Mencho Osguera Cervantes, an infamous drug lord and leader within the Jalisco New Generation cartel, was eliminated. El Mencho was a top target for the Mexican and United States government as one of the top movers around of certain illegal substances into the U.S. and Mexico. Last year, President Trump rightfully designated this same organization as a foreign terrorist organization because that's exactly what it is. In this operation, 3 additional members were killed, 3 were wounded, and 2 were arrested. And she says, President Trump has been very clear the United States will ensure these terrorists sending bad substances to the U.S. are forced to face the wrath of justice they have long deserved. However, there's also an interesting point because for the past few big cartel leaders that they have captured, I'm not going to name names, but for the last few members of cartel leaders they have captured, they have gotten them alive. This is the first one that they haven't been able to capture and keep alive enough to be able to go testify or to be able to face justice in the United States.
Well, he went on the transport alive, but by the time he got off the transport, he was no longer alive. So what happened on that transport? It's pretty obvious. Whether it was the Mexican government or the U.S. government, they didn't want him to come off that transport alive.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
But we have also, and usually there is some proof of what kind of operation they have done. There hasn't been any full proof of El Mencho actually being transported or what happened to him or where he is. They have said that there was
video of him being transported.
Yes, but in a car. Like we haven't seen him. We haven't seen evidence of even what he looked like recently. There have been no recent photos. That's why we keep seeing the older photos of him circulated around. There have been allegedly some fake pictures also circling around of the moment when he was ended, or in the transport. But again, those are just unverified.
And
There's
again,
nothing official from the government.
One of the big strategies when generals or they're wargaming this in the United States, there is a lot of YouTube channels that kind of have assets from inside the administration, and they talk about these war games, their best strategy going into something like this. One of the big strategies is actually to pick the winners and losers. So have cartels fight against one another, eliminate one another while you consolidate power within one or two, and possibly roll them up into the government and try to get them to cease their illegal operations. That's widely talked about as the smartest option. That's obviously not what happened here. They went after one specific leader. There was a big pushback when they did get that leader. I mean, I don't think they were expecting that reaction. And I think they're kind of testing the waters with these operations. Like, what happens when we push this far? And what happens when we push this far or we do this?
And with this leader, again, he was one of the most infamous, I will say, and well-known leaders of the CJ&J, which is, if not the biggest, one of the parallel biggest cartels in Mexico. He was mostly just the figurehead. And there's allegations that there's somebody else that was actually in the place of actually doing the logistics and coordination of operations that the cartel members were doing and of things that they were just in general, how they operate, who is the yogurt, which, again, take this with a grain of salt, but they might still be trying to locate him.
Yeah, let's go into the next clip. There was something else I was going to say there, but you made me forget it there.
Sorry. From Mario Naufel, a Mexican senator, is this Lili Tellez? I believe it is.
Yeah, this is Lili Tellez. Yeah. And Lili Tellez is one of the few senators or politicians in Mexico that will really stand up and speak up against the cartels. A lot of people lose their head, lose their life if they do say anything. So,
and she is from the more tending to conservative party. I wouldn't say they're fully conservative. There's no actual conservative party in Mexico. But for months now, she has been speaking about U.S. intervention and about the necessity of something to be done to the U.S. media, which is rare for a Mexican politician to do.
Well, when I first moved to Mexico, I said this would be the big election issue in 2030. 2030 is the next election. Even in the next midterm election, I said this would be the big issue. It looks like I was right, because if these things continue, it is going to be the big issue. And because all the politicians are scared to speak up, Lili Tellez could be the big beneficiary of this. I mean, I think her political status is going to go way up if she can keep her head.
But I will say this has been the biggest issue for the past 30 years in Mexican elections. It's just if it ramps up or not close to when the elections are supposed to happen.
The president of Mexico is furious. She's calling Mexican Senator Lili Tellez a traitor for coming on Fox Noticias with me a few days ago and saying this. Listen.
The help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, and that is how the majority of Mexicans feel. The only ones who don't like that President Trump is sending help and trying to support Mexicans against the cartels are the narco politicians. That includes President Sheinbaum.
And pause it.
Mexican.
We're going to continue to play the clip, but this is an older clip. I just want people to know who she is. I know a lot of people might not know Mexican politics. I think she's going to be more and more an important figure as this thing goes on.
We'll see.
President Claudia Sheinbaum responding, saying, quote, "It's not a minor issue that a senator gave an interview to a foreign media outlet calling for intervention." Here to discuss is that Mexican Senator Lili Tellez. Senator Tellez, welcome to Fox Noticias. I'm just going to get right to it. Is Mexico a narco state?
Yes, it is. And we all Mexicans know about it. And Mexicans are afraid of the alliance between the Mexican government and the cartels that have infested our nation.
Can you explain this alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels?
Yes, the party has financed, has given, the cartels have given so much money to these politicians, narco politicians of Morena, to get into office, to get the power. So they protect the Mexican government, protects the cartels. That is why President Sheinbaum doesn't want the strong American leadership to help Mexico defeat the cartels. And also Sheinbaum doesn't want the rest of the world to know what is happening here in Mexico. We are on the steps to be the next Venezuela. She is aligned with Venezuela.
Pause it for a quick second. Another reason she's going to be a very important figure, I think, coming up is because she does speak English and she does have connections into the American media as well as the Mexican media. So she's in a very strategically placed position that a lot of politicians in Mexico just aren't.
With Cuba, and we are losing our country. They have destroyed our republican institutions, the democratic state, and we must. I think we all Mexicans want and welcome the support of the United States to assist Mexican people against the cartels that have us all in this crisis with the traffic in fentanyl and migrants.
So her response to this, and I know this because her spokesperson came on our show in response to your interview, and they say, well, we just turned over 26 cartel members. We're working, we're sharing intelligence. What are they not doing? And why is she so resistant? She sort of speaks out of two sides of her mouth. We're working with you, Trump, and then she's chastising you for saying we need more help from the United States to crush the cartels.
Because she really doesn't want the help of the United States. She is lying to Mexican people, telling Mexican people that the United States will get in control of the whole country. Right. I never listened such nonsense from President Trump.
Okay, and you can.
But again, I think that is part of that Kissinger doctrine that Trump is allowing her to apply, while, and now a bit more obvious than ever, actual cooperation between maybe not herself, but those that are in the security forces in Mexico and that have been tracking this for a while.
There was a feeling out process that happened between Claudia Sheinbaum and Donald Trump. Ultimately, Sheinbaum realized she was going to have to cooperate for the economic future of the country. I think Trump attached a lot of the economic future of the country with, you need to clean up these cartels. If we want to build manufacturing and other things within the country, we need to make sure we can get our goods in and out, and we have to really secure the country itself. I think she was still somewhat resistant. That being said, now that this thing has really flared up to the level it is, and she has kind of shown her cards to the cartel that she is aligned with the United States, I think she's going to really start going to Trump and asking for a lot more help than she has in the past, more than just intelligence help.
Well, not just aligned with the U.S., but also betraying them in a way, or the party itself betraying them in a way, because we did see, and a lot of those, again, targeted hits at certain buildings, certain banks, certain convenience stores, and certain brands were or are directly linked to either Morena or the government. But I will also say, and Lili Tellez did say there that, oh, it's Morena and it's the narco politicians. And yes, well, I agree, there has been a lot and an increase in the cooperation between the cartels and this specific party. It is the Mexican governmental system and governance in general that has been corrupted for the longest time. This isn't the first time with Morena or since AMLO came in that we have seen this cooperation and this give and take between cartels and government members. The problem is also the system and the career politicians that have taken advantage of the fractures that there are within the state of government itself.
Yeah, the way Trump has kind of come in and completely shut down the border, that
Morena is worse. I just wanted to say
that ends up being a huge asset at this point. If that border wasn't locked down like it is, that would be a strategic vulnerability for the United States right now. Obviously, there's going to be cells within the United States of a lot of these cartels, especially the one that's flaring up right now, because that is the most violent cartel of all the cartels within Mexico. That being said, I don't know if they actually want to activate a lot of these cells that would be in the United States, because that's going to pose an immediate reaction from the American military demanding to come into Mexico, I would think.
And they're in all 50 states of the U.S. They're also in Canada, mainly along port cities. So there's a big presence in Vancouver, and they have been there for quite a few years now to do trade and treatings with China as well.
Well, and a lot of people,
they're all over the place, and people think it's just localized to Mexico, but it's not.
A lot of people don't know what Trump actually did on the border. He didn't just shut down the border so illegal migrants couldn't come in. He's completely militarized that border. He's moved equipment, built temporary military bases. He's building more permanent military bases down there, vehicle storage, equipment storage, moving massive amounts of highly specialized military equipment to the border. So that border is really a launching pad for whatever they want to do, as well as it's really becoming an impenetrable wall. And the fact that he did build that wall becomes very important now.
And he had called out Sheinbaum for exactly what she is, or at least a while ago. Eric Doherty said, quote, President Trump called it, Sheinbaum is not running Mexico, the cartels are running Mexico. And in a way, it's been proven right.
I do realize we have a lot of newer clips that are going to come out of what was happening in the city, but giving the context of what the positions were of Sheinbaum, of Trump, of these other major players, whether it's other U.S. politicians or Mexican politicians like Lili Tellez, are very important kind of going forward, because it's going to show how the chessboard is kind of developing.
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico. Well, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I think strategically, if Sheinbaum had her way and she actually wanted to address the issue, which I don't think she initially wanted to address, but there's a lot of pressure on her, she would want to see cartel power to be consolidated and cartels to go after cartels, because that would give her plausible deniability that she's not the one taking action. As soon as something like this happens, where it's the Mexican military going after direct figureheads, shit's going to land on her head, and the only place for her to go now is really to the United States and Donald Trump. She can't make any backroom deals with these cartels anymore.
And which is why there he says that she's controlled by the cartels. But I will say, almost even more importantly, in a way, she is also just fully controlled by her predecessor, AMLO, who continues to dominate and allegedly have the ultimate decisions over what goes on, not just within Morena, the party, but within Mexican government, because a lot of Morena has taken over a lot of branches of power as well of the Mexican government, the judicial, the military, a bunch of different things they fully have control of now. And Claudia, while she is the president, has been alleged to receive a lot of the actual moving strategy and what to do by AMLO. So I will say there is a fragmentation too right now, allegedly within the party. I have to say that. Some people don't come after me, but allegedly within the Morena party, where there's a Claudia people who are kind of in agreement with what was done and celebrating the fact that this huge cartel leader was captured, and that they're saying, applauding the military, applauding the president for taking decisive action. Then there's the AMLO people who are angry about the fact that they had said for the longest time it was hugs, not bullets. The cooperation internally was very important. The giving and taking of certain things and privileges was also important. And a lot of them, if it comes out and if this fracturing continues, or if the U.S. comes in, are in way more danger of being discovered as being colluded or involved with cartels themselves. So also, there's a power struggle, not just between the cartels right now, who have lost their head of their leader, but also amongst those that rule the country, not allegedly, but officially.
Yeah, I think this will be the defining factor in the 2030 election. If people don't know, the next major election in Mexico is 2030. Claudia Sheinbaum, who's the current president, can't run again, but her party can, or they can start a new party. That being said, if she starts cooperating with the Americans, which it looks like she's going to have to completely do so now if she wants protection. But if she's able to actually clean up a lot of organized crime here, she's going to be able to take a lot of credit for that. And I think that will be a defining factor for the 2030 election.
And now moving kind of closer to the timeline of events, but speaking about Canada, where Anita Anand came out to say that Canada was not warned about this. And of course they weren't, because they're unimportant at this point.
Well, there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of evidence that the Canadian government itself is working hand in hand with a lot of these cartels. So to give a warning in any way, shape, or form to the Canadian government, you may just be tipping off one of these cartels.
That could also be a reason why not that many people within the Mexican government were informed about this either, because they know how fast information spreads to the people they're actually trying to capture, which has actually thwarted a lot of past operations that the U.S. has attempted within Mexico.
Do you believe that President Sheinbaum has the situation under control?
I am concerned with the safety and security of Canadians first and foremost. In answer to your question, in my conversation with Foreign Minister de la Fuente last evening, he indicated that the situation should stabilize in the coming days, and that this was a targeted operation which will not continue.
This seems to have been triggered by this, Minister. This seems to have, all this violence has been triggered by the security operation. Given the number of Canadians that were there, were you given any warning that this security operation was going to take place?
I was not provided with any indication that this particular operation would be taking place. And on my understanding, I believe that the government of Canada was not provided with indication that it was going to occur.
Yeah, and it would be absolutely ridiculous if they shared any information with the Canadian government. Why? Because the Canadian government has already signed off with intelligence sharing with China. And we know there's major connections with the Chinese government and the cartels themselves. So, like, it might seem innocent. Oh, they have Canadian citizens within the country. We demand that you share intelligence with us. It could completely undermine the entire operation, and it would give intelligence to other governments that are working against the Mexican and Americans by directly providing whether it's weapons or other things to the cartels.
And we did see a lot of Canadians in Puerto Vallarta, in other states that were vacationing or were snowbirds or were just here for some X or Y reason, but an outsize of Canadians being stranded and being shocked by the violence that they saw out in the streets. And curiously enough, and we'll get into it in a bit, but a lot of the same boomers, snowbirds, people that can actually have the money from in Canada to travel outside of Canada when it's cold, were told not to go to the United States because of the Canadian mainstream media and Canadian government TDS syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome, and they ended up in Mexico thinking that it was going to be safer than the United States. Again, it's insane that a lot of Canadians think that the U.S. is the world's biggest threat right now, as they see cities burn where they're vacationing. Not that I'm saying that Mexico is the biggest threat right now, but just the fact that there were so many Canadians there, they had to come out and give statements from the Canadian government itself, shows the effect of the misinformation campaign that we continue to see in Canada and why Alberta wants to be independent.
Yeah, and it's also going to be interesting what happens. Is there going to be a lull now, or are they going to continue to kind of apply pressure? Because if there is a lull now, this would allow the tourist industry to kind of recover by saying it's a one-off and give deep discounts to tourists to come to Mexico. And I think they could recover. The thing is, if they continue to amp up operations, it's absolutely going to hollow out the tourist industry for a long time to come here.
But in a way, it's not even about them amping up operations or not. It is about what more reaction the cartels want to continue to show, and if they will seize upon the opportunity right now or coming in the coming months when the World Cup is actually happening, which again, I will say we'll talk about it as well in a bit, but there are talks about if Mexico should even host, because one of the main states where this violence was happening is where a lot of the matches are supposed to take place.
Well, the cartels have already shown their hand. They're going to push back, so it's not a matter if they're going to do another operation. If they just decide to continue to do operations, stuff like this is going to happen. We now know the reaction and the counter reaction. So to think the Mexican military can continue operations against these cartels and nothing's going to happen, obviously it's if the Mexican and American governments continue to do these operations, things are going to continue to burn, and it will completely hollow out the tourist industry here. Now, if this is a one-off and they don't continue operations, there would be a chance for recovery.
And just as another ridiculous aside from a Canadian politician that is going viral right now because of something she tweeted regarding this, I want to highlight Heather McPherson. If you haven't seen this is insane. So her message to the Canadian community trapped within the violence in Mexico was, quote, many Canadians, especially members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, so those are the only ones that matter, are in Puerto Vallarta, where violence has quickly escalated. A shelter-in-place order is in effect. Please stay vigilant and consult the Government of Canada travel advisories and Moose on the Loose here, which we have highlighted on this channel. Here reasonably says statements like this are the reason you'll never leave Canada. Why are you even running in the leadership race if you want to lead the alphabet crew? My mother is in Mexico right now, so prayers to your mother as well, which confirmed last night is safe, not someone you'd care about because she's not part of the alphabet gang. And that is exactly the exact kind of divisive rhetoric that leads people to go to Mexico instead of somewhere safer as cartel violence explodes right next to them or in front of them too.
Well, I guess that's sending a message to the cartel. You can kill any Westerners you want, just don't go after the LGBTQ community because there will be repercussions in the media. Sarcastically, I say that, obviously. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're trying to play favoritism to certain groups. And yeah, my prayers go kind of out to everybody that's
trapped. Yeah. We also know that Vancouver independent journalist Dan Dix was down here in Mexico to go to some conference and to do some reporting. We've tried to reach out and say, hey, if you need any kind of help, because we've met him before, we can help. But obviously the situation is insane. The last thing I saw from Dan Dix was that he still wasn't able to leave. And again, proving the point that, well, the Mexican government and even the airports say that everything's functioning normally right now. A lot of the tourists and a lot of the flights continue to be canceled and they continue to be stranded while they hear messaging from the official sources saying, no, everything's fine, you can go.
Yeah, and some of my advice might be, because a lot of these journalists and patrons seem to be stranded within Puerto Vallarta or some of these other cities. Here in Mexico City, a lot of the stuff isn't going on. The international airport is it is the biggest in the country, and flights are going as normal. So if you can get to your local airport, it would be shut down. But if you can get to Mexico City, which isn't too far, like if you know some of the roads are open and it's safe, try to get to Mexico City.
But the thing is,
it's a good hub.
It's not very safe to get on the road. So it is complicated. But if there are some local flights that maybe they could take just to get to the city to be able to, because it's a major hub, then you probably will be able to get back home. But shelter in place as well. And a lot of the states, while the government says that everything's reopened, the local state governments are saying, and the governors are saying, it's code red, don't go out yet. And a lot of schools were canceled today. Banks also closed down in certain states, in the states with the most violence. So the messaging and the confusion created, also, I will not blame X, but even on X, with the fake posts and with the fake videos and with the alarmism, which, well, yes, it's alarming, and yes, a lot of that things are actually happening, I don't think helps with a government that isn't giving clear, concise information.
Yeah, and just kind of waiting around and thinking you're going to get out in a couple of days, maybe, yeah, you very well might, but you also have to look at this from the Trump administration perspective. This is helping him immensely. Things weren't going very well coming into the midterms. These ICE protests were kind of amping up. This kind of reframes everything when you have this going on in Mexico. So potentially they want to escalate things. Potentially they want another strike against another cartel leader that would cause more chaos within Mexico. If that does happen, people will be stranded for an extended period of time. So to think this was a one-off, it happened yesterday and now it's kind of simmering down today, even though there's flare-ups here or there, you have to really think of it from an American administration perspective. They may want to escalate this thing now. This also will allow them to kind of play the savior. They know Claudia Sheinbaum's going to have to kind of run into their arms because that's going to be her only protection.
And it helps the narrative of, hey, these bad people that are doing these horrible things that you're watching online or that you're suffering through if you're in one of the hotels or as a tourist are also spread all over the 50 states of the US and are some of the people that we have captured but need to continue to capture. So now when you see the crazy people in Minnesota waving Mexican flags and saying ICE, F-ICE, etc., it does recontextualize the information of, hey, these are the people we're trying to go after. And the Mexican government said that this was a one-off operation, nothing else is going to happen. But what's going to happen when in 2 weeks the Senate approves another entry of who knows how many more Navy SEALs or soldiers from the US, and then 2 weeks later we see another capture or another escalation of actually going after the cartels.
Well, and it also completely reframes what happened under the Biden administration, meaning you literally had millions of illegals pulling across the border. Now, given though a lot of those actually weren't people from Mexico, but a lot of them were, and they were completely undocumented. So now the statement had always been made, you're going to have a lot of cartel members and unsavory people coming into the United States, and people kind of brush that aside. But now that looking at that in context, you're thinking maybe there are major cells within the United States. If just one of those gets activated, there's going to be major repercussions. We've seen the last time something happened on U.S. soil, which was 9/11, there was a major escalation there.
Mm-hmm. And cells that could be activated at any point. It could be individuals or it could be full-on actual cells. Again, right now, I think the reaction we're seeing is directly against the betrayal from Morena and the current government to the cartels that they had been allegedly in collusion with.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a strategic game happening. Just kind of like you said, you have AMLO, the previous president, and Claudia Sheinbaum. AMLO's slogan was "Hugs, not bullets." Claudia Sheinbaum seems to have aligned with American administration for economic reasons. That being said, they want to make sure they splinter that unification between AMLO and Claudia Sheinbaum. So they're going to want to have her do more operations. They're really going to pressure her right now, saying, you're going to need protection from us. If you want protection, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. They're going to want to really put a lot of pressure on her to escalate. The only reason I would say maybe they wouldn't want to escalate right now is because they have so many troops deployed in the Middle East. A lot of the aircraft carriers were taken from Venezuela over to the Middle East. If those aircraft carriers were still sitting in the Gulf of America or Mexico, however you want to look at it, I think it would be a completely different situation. It would be relentless pressure on Claudia Sheinbaum to continue operations.
So right now, I do think she has that opportunity to say this was a one-off, everything's going back to normal. However, she doesn't have full control of what actually goes on the streets. And I do think it's important that people can now see the type of equipment, the type of armament, and the type of tactics that this cartel, specifically CJNG, are able to deploy, because a lot of people didn't believe it or had never seen anything like it.
Yeah, let's go into a few more clips we got here.
Which in a bit we'll see some, but it also infuriates me. A lot of American tourists are not taking it seriously, who are down on the ground there. But from Charlie's Voice Rising, quote, Mexico's army is mobilizing after reports that the CJNG boss said Mencho was ended. Cartels don't take hits quietly. Mexico should ask for the U.S. support now, which they still yet haven't officially done. Oh, there's no volume. But yes, we did see a lot of military deployed yesterday and also today, a lot more police on certain parts of Mexico and on the streets in certain areas, not all of them. But
let's take a look here. They're driving Ford trucks. They have a cargo truck there. They have a couple of small arms. They don't have much. When you look at the cartels, they have much heavier equipment. They're much better armed. It's much newer equipment as well. There was some clips coming out of cartel garages where they're armoring their trucks. None of these trucks are armored. So if it was a head-to-head confrontation, I don't think it goes well for the Mexican military. That being said, the big equalizer is American intelligence.
And I wish I did have the clip, but during military parades here in Mexico, they display these big armored vehicles and trucks and tanks and etc., which are not actually from Mexico, and they usually borrow them, repaint them, and then give them back to whoever they borrowed them from. So the Mexican military has been incredibly weakened by AMLO first, so the former president, who is also from the party that Claudia is, that the president right now is. But he, again, wanted to disarm and put the military to better use, taking care of or building bridges or doing different things that have nothing to do with military training and equipment, and sold off a lot of that military equipment. So now he has also left Claudia in an even worse place, where she will probably, if this continues, have to ask for U.S. aid.
Well, the cartels obviously have the huge strategic advantage here. Their willingness to use violence and really have no end to that violence, going after whether it's civilian locations like gas stations and banks, going after civilians, going directly after the military. They don't have any boundaries. Now, the Mexican military normally wouldn't have, they would have some boundaries, but they have even more with the statements that Claudia Sheinbaum's coming out saying that these cartel members have human rights. We don't want to violate their human rights. That shows an unwillingness to use violence. You're going to have to meet violence with violence. And if she's not willing to do that, she's really putting these military men and women out there, kind of like sitting ducks, sitting in uniforms, making roadblocks. You know right where they're at. They're going to be easy to hit. The cartels can kind of hit and run, while the Mexican military is just really sitting out there.
And unfortunately, there has also been links between the Mexican military and cartels and infiltrations going both ways. So that, I think, is also why not that much information was released previous to the capture, about the capture, because you never know who you can trust in Mexico and within the military and police structures, especially local police.
Yeah, they're going to have to remake military units here, quarantine units, the units that are working with the special forces and intelligence in the United States. They'll probably do special recruiting, look at backgrounds, people they can trust, and quarantine those individuals so information doesn't get leaked and they know they can trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just continue to fire through some clips because we talked quite a bit so far.
And I think this is important to put in context. So we'll see the clip first, and then I'll give a bit more context. So from Concerned Citizens says, quote, cartel gang members now burning down banks in Mexico. And it's a very specific bank, and I'll tell you why after you see the clip.
Quémalo, quémalo. A la verga, todo, todo. Échale de todo. Se bloquearon, mijo. No te verga, no vayan a llegar los verdes. Mira, así nomás, a la verga. Todo. Quémalo, quémalo.
And right there you see Bienestar, and that's a very specific bank here in Mexico. The banks of the Bienestar or welfare are the banks that AMLO and the Morena party established to be able to give welfare checks out to people that essentially vote for them. So they were mostly just targeting, they weren't the only banks they targeted, but about 50 to 60 Bancos del Bienestar or welfare banks were burned down by members of the CJNG, which shows again the fracturing between and not disappointment, but the anger towards the current government of this change in strategy and this breaking of the cooperation that they had initially. So it did. From the ground, it does look very coordinated that they went after those banks specifically when usually you would think they wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's bad coordination. And I'll just say it right off the bat. If the cartels are going to burn down the banks that are kind of giving out the welfare checks, and then the government can't give out the welfare checks, the people are actually going to blame the cartels, not the government, because,
That's the thing.
And that's the thing. Also, burning down a lot of the infrastructure like gas stations, like grocery stores, going after civilians that are actually locals. All this stuff builds a sediment against the cartels. And I think ultimately the cartels are going to want to make a framing of they are the freedom fighters trying to defend off the United States. At least that's what the United States was thinking was going to happen. And that's why they need to use the Mexican military to do a lot of these operations.
But right now, they are just sending a message, I would say. At least this is how I see it and the analysis I have seen. They're sending a message specifically to the government, but also by burning down, of course, other businesses too, and individuals, businesses and small shops, but mainly Oxxos, which is a convenience store branch here. They also burn down 7-Elevens, but not as many, and specific gas stations, all of which belong to specific people that they are now trying to send a message to. So again, the burnings and the lootings and etc. are, not all of them, but a lot of them do send, if they are trying to, a very specific message.
Well, and what you're gonna realize is certain gas stations, certain grocery stores are actually completely owned by the cartels. We're talking chain grocery stores, chain gas stations. So I would expect certain locations to not be hit, and that will really consolidate. If anybody does need gas, and there's only 2 gas stations open, economically that benefits the cartels immensely.
But this is not the first time we've seen it. And we do have here, this one I believe is almost fully verified, them burning down, setting a gas station on fire in Mexico. And this has been the tactic.
Yeah, this is one of the most famous clips coming out now. You can turn it down.
Oh, I'd seen it without music.
You can turn it down. Yeah, and you better run quick. And that's why there's so much smoke coming off of these cities yesterday. Supposedly there was a report that there was a car burning here in Mexico City, but I didn't see anything.
Well, no, that was pretty far away in Tlalpan, which is almost on the outskirts of the city, going towards a highway that leads to a different state where there have been more reports of things happening.
Well, let's go into some comments because I forgot we were going to go back to comments.
Yes, I was trying to go back to comments, but then you started talking. Jessica Ramirez, hello. She's from our Spanish channel as well. Says, hello, Nat, Guy, and everyone in the chat. Hello, and hopefully you are safe too, because I do know a lot of the people that watch my show in Spanish are not from the city, which is one of the more safer zones right now, and they are from the states where a lot of insane stuff is happening. So please keep safe out there if you are there.
Yeah, thanks for leaving a comment. I didn't think she was watching
Thank
this
you for leaving a comment too. Jessica here in English. Nan says hello and says, I've heard that this was an operation at least supported by or joined with the U.S.
100%.
Yeah. And the U.S. came out to say it directly.
This is not just an operation being conducted by the U.S. This has been building up since, I would say, 3 months after Trump got into office. They have been coordinating with the Mexican government, gathering intelligence through satellites, through drones. Every square inch of Mexico is kind of being mapped out, strategic targets. The border has been militarized, equipment's been moved there, so then they can then move it into Mexico where they need to when they have cooperation with the Mexican military. Claudia Sheinbaum at this point is completely cooperating with the U.S. military, so I would expect more of this. It's just a matter of, there was quite a bit of pushback here, so it's like, what's the next move? Are they going to give some breathing room before they go again?
And also information gathering. I mean, the U.S. has been doing specific information gathering on certain governors and certain people involved within the structures of government here.
And you also have to remember they have Iran, they have Ukraine, they had Venezuela. I mean, they have a lot of operations going on globally right now. So having this kind of flare up right now, they might want to gear some of these other operations down and bring it back home. This is really close to the United States. So this is going to be their primary issue if this continues to flare up.
And there are reports that more stuff has been activating closer to the border, kind of near when we started the show. So like a few hours ago, I'm trying to remember the name of the reporter, but I'll look for it in Julio Rosas. Julio Rosas was reporting that at the Tijuana border, things were starting to escalate, or with the U.S. border.
And where you're really going to probably see things escalate if it does happen in the border would be on the California-Mexico border, because I would expect there to be a lot of internal sales within California specifically.
And
because it's a sanctuary state.
Rafa says trivia. Mencho, El Mencho, which is the guy that they captured, was also known as the Lord of the Roosters. And they have all kind of crazy names. I saw a lot of people asking, why do they always put the in front of them? Because it means like the king, the this, the that. And they all have nicknames amongst all of them. And I mentioned El Yogurt, or the yogurt, which is essentially, potentially, the next in command after, and the actual one in command after El Mencho. And I'll just tell you, he's allegedly nicknamed El Yogurt, or the yogurt, because he does to your bowels what yogurt does. He makes you do that. Non says, we can hear and see. Thank you. That's what we were wondering if we were still online. Riv says, my prayers for Mexicans. And I mean, same here. Again, we are lucky that we live close to Mexico City, where it's pretty calm, at least for now. They did bring El Mencho's body, so this guy's body, to Mexico City. So there is an outsized presence of helicopters surrounding just all of Mexico, from what I've seen, and of police being in specific areas, but mostly where the body is located.
Yeah, usually if you wanted to send a message, you would go after the financial center of the country, which would be Mexico City. The issue with that is a lot of the cartels have a lot of investments here, and it would kind of mess up their own economic operations, I think.
And usually it's almost an unspoken rule that you don't really hit Mexico City as a whole.
And it's heavily militarized if it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one place they would really protect.
But again,
in the end,
we've seen crazier things. So,
but obviously, this is just starting to amp up. The big question is there going to be a break in operations, or is there not? But they're definitely going to continue. And I think this is only really the beginning of what we're going to see over the next 3 years, as long as the Trump administration is in there.
And also the vie for power, not just amongst the CJNG. Yeah. You can never remember which way the words go. Not just amongst the CJNG and that grasp for power, but also amongst other cartels that might see this as an opportunity to move into different territories or try to grasp and take away territories from the CJNG.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely expecting within the summertime, things are going to begin to happen. If you have any midterm elections in the United States along the border states, this is a guaranteed victory for any conservative. This open border policy isn't going to fly anymore. And anybody that was campaigning on that, it's going to be put into political ads, and it's going to be the end of their...
Yeah, because you can just do the contrasting images of, we captured this guy, he was part of this cartel, and this person is now telling you that they want more of them in.
Yeah, it's really going to hurt Minnesota as well. Anywhere there are these mass ICE protests, you could see the vote potentially going the other way. Now, the northern states aren't going to be as connected to this, so we'll see kind of what happens.
And Tal, hello Tal, says they go at each other backwards to protect the cab and engines. Who goes?
You'll drive at a truck with a mounted gun in the truck so that the engine's protected.
Got it.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of warfare and stuff like that, so I don't know much.
But also there's access to the gas tank that way. A lot of time the engine protects. So if you are going to get in a fight, maybe you would want to place yourself behind an engine because a lot of that steel could potentially stop bullets.
But I will say, unfortunately, on the highways and a lot of the cars that you're seeing being burnt just along the highway, and some of them are real videos, are from people that get stopped by cartel members, get told to get out of the car, sometimes full families, and then their car is set ablaze and they're just either left there to figure out how to get home or just ended right there on the spot. So that is what it means when you see those cars on the street.
Yeah, and if you're driving a truck, they'll usually take the truck because it's a good military vehicle to use in operations.
And Joe Montana, hello, says, do you think the CJNG will attack U.S. tourists and inside the U.S.? If they did, what do you think the U.S. would do? Do you think they would attack the Mexican military?
No, I think they want to send a message to, I think they're going to try to send a message to Claudia Sheinbaum and the Mexican military that you need to stop cooperating with the U.S. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if they hit the U.S. is going to demand that they come in and they absolutely cooperate, that the Mexican military and Claudia Sheinbaum cooperates with them 100%. Right now, they're probably be getting 50 to 60% cooperation, which is a lot. And it's enough where they're going to be able to leverage every time she cooperates to get more cooperation out of her. So it's only a matter of time before she is cooperating 100%. But as soon as there is a strike on American citizens or within America, they're going to come in and demand 100% cooperation with Claudia Sheinbaum. And she's going to have to give it at that point.
But at this moment, I don't think they want to kind of so easily give up their power by just going after the U.S. directly. I think they're going to continue to just siege and lay siege to the Mexican population and the states where they have the most dominance and control and coordination too.
Yeah, and it's a lot more of a chessboard when you're going against the American military and the U.S. is only kind of offering intelligence gathering and sharing with the Mexican military there. Things progress a lot more slow. There's a lot more chess pieces to kind of move around the board. If they strike somewhere in the United States or they start trying to go after American citizens, the entire country has been mapped out. It would be drone warfare, missiles would be launched, strategic targets would be taken out. It would be pretty gruesome.
Mm-hmm. And Polly, the Latinos Land says, Caliucci's concert in Guadalajara on Sunday was canceled, just announced. I'm guessing this coming Sunday. Again, not surprised. Schools were closed today, at least in the states where they got the worst. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? I haven't really seen much information about the coming days. I just see what happened, what's they're planning for today as in cancellations and not doing things. But again, a bunch of matches, I don't remember how many, were supposed to be played in this new stadium that's in Guadalajara, which is in the state of Jalisco, which is where they captured him and all of the violence started. They found pets near the stadium not that long ago. So how are they planning to, I mean, again, they're already canceling concerts. I'm kind of say good because I don't like Caliucci's, but they're canceling concerts for next Sunday. So how many more cancellations before they realize they have to change the World Cup?
Yeah, the Mexican government was already trying to kind of get out of these World Cup matches because the stadium's not quite built yet. They don't know if they have enough infrastructure to actually support this.
Most of the stadiums.
So there was talk about potentially moving these games after this happens. I think they're definitely going to probably move these games to the United States or Canada.
I mean, at least FIFA is in talks, and they're corrupt as hell as it is. But I do think there's going to be a lot of conversations about that. Shakira was also supposed to come to the city center, and the obvious suggestion to everybody and the whole Mexican population is don't go out to massive events because you're a sitting target when you do. And the fact that the Mexican government, it's just insane that they planned. There was also a marathon happening in Guadalajara the day that they did this. Why would you have a massive event with a bunch of sitting ducks as well when you're doing an operation like this? Were they not in coordination with each other? Was there no communication between what was happening and the event organizers? But again, could there be? Because there are too many questions.
Maybe I'll play the devil's advocate here and I'll show the other side of the coin. When's the last time something like this happened and there was a major world event? I think it was FIFA. It may have been the Olympics, but that was in Brazil. There was a huge gang war that was actually far bigger than what's going on here in Mexico right now. They were taking over the entire cities over there. Yet they ended up bringing out the military, getting a hold on things, and they still held those events. So I could see him potentially trying to hold it here still. They're going to have to amp up military presence if they want to do that, though.
But find more military, because again, the numbers are just not, are too close together amongst how many cartel members there are just for that one versus military personnel. Tal says, Disturbed Reality on YouTube only covers cartels every Friday very well for anyone that is interested. He's very learned about all of them, and he explains the connections. Sicario vids are blurred. And I usually don't like to cover it too much, even though I do cover news in Mexico, just because it can get into that whole, morbid just obsession about knowing who got ended here, and it loses a little bit of the respect for the humans that are actually suffering through the violence that a lot of them right now are in a lot of states in Mexico.
Yeah, and good on him if he does cover it. It can be somewhat dangerous to cover the topic in depth, especially when times are getting as heated as they are. We will continue to cover it, but
that was it.
Oh, okay. Let's continue to go into a couple more clips here.
Yes. Speaking of violence, from Bricks News, quote, CJNG cartel ambush ends 2 Mexican National Guard members, injures 1 in Camay.
Yeah, and they're going to have to, you can wait on the headphones. They're going to have complete new protocol here. When you drive around Mexico City or the countryside, you do see usually 1 or 2 police officers with each other. Sometimes you'll see 1 or 2 military in a military truck. That being said, having 1 or 2 people just sitting on the side of the road, you're pretty much just a sitting target there. So yeah, let's kind of play the video and see what happened to the truck, but they're going to need to change a lot of their protocol, I think.
And again, a lot of budget has been removed and a lot of tools have been removed from both military and police by the current government.
¿Te dieron? Checa allá la celda, la morra, güey. ¿Te dieron? Ponte en un lugar, güey, que no se... Así quedó mi vehículo.
And that is a National Guard vehicle.
Yeah, and you can see what happened. They were just parked on the side of the road, and the truck just drove up, would have stopped, put a bunch in the front windshield, and then they kept driving and they put holes in the side of the vehicle there. So literally you're just sitting ducks at a certain point. And that's why the cartels have such a big advantage, not only just in manpower, but equipment and strategic violence that they're willing to use.
And we do have a bunch of different reporters from more independent or at least not mainstream media covering the events.
And I've been following this gentleman for quite a while. He's a really good source. So if you're not following him, I do recommend him. I follow him on YouTube as well.
Jorge Ventura Media says, just got off the phone with my contact in Tijuana with now cartel violence erupting in Baja California, road blockades, cars on fire, and businesses closing early. He is going to Tijuana to cover.
And he's in Tijuana now.
Oh, he's the one that said, it was Jorge Ventura, not Julio Rosas, I believe. He's the one that said that cartel violence is starting and car burnings are starting now in Tijuana in the latest update.
Hey everyone, not sure if you saw my last tweet. I have some new videos coming out of Mexico. It's exclusive reporting of now deceased Mexican authorities I got from a follower of mine right now in Guadalajara, Mexico. I just got off the phone with a contact of mine in Tijuana. He says the cartel violence has now started in Baja California. Cars are on fire and there are now road blockades. Several businesses are closing. They're trying to limit the movement of the taxis and some of the other businesses. So I am now headed to Tijuana, Baja California to cover the ongoing cartel violence, but also the aftermath right on the border to just get a different angle of the story. So stay tuned for our reporting. Also, check out that last tweet I just posted. That is a new exclusive video coming out of Guadalajara moments ago.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting what does happen. Right now, they're pushing back on Claudia Sheinbaum and the Mexican military, saying you need to stop cooperating with the U.S. government on these operations. But undoubtedly, this is going to continue to escalate. Trump has made this kind of a priority. They're going to continue to do strategic strikes. So you have to wonder about a lot of these American communities. And he was talking about Baja California. That's a huge coalition of Americans that live in that particular city. And there's these hubs where there's a lot of internationals, whether it's Canadians or Americans. There's over a million Americans that permanently live in Mexico. So it's going to be interesting how safe those communities are going to be in the long term. Right now, I think they're pretty safe because they don't want to escalate to that level. But as things do escalate, you're going to want to think they're going to specifically target those communities.
But we did see, I mean, it was what, 2011, maybe even sooner, 2009. I don't even remember the dates, but because I was way younger. But we did see the war on cartels from former President Felipe Calderón, and a lot of the similar things were happening. And it started kind of like this, but then it continued on and on and on. But they did, in the mostly respect the tourist areas. So it is interesting that they are deciding right now not to, and to send a message that way.
Yeah, but because the Trump administration has such a heavy hand in this, I think they may start targeting in those tourist areas. So
from Wall Street Map, quote, President Trump and ICE are trying to prevent the USA from becoming a third world disaster. Look at Mexico right now. Even the tourist areas are being attacked.
So everybody is being told to leave the area right now here on the beach. The tiki bar is being cleared out. All of these things are being cleared out. It's being roped off right now. They're asking that everybody vacate the area and leave immediately. You can see the smoke. I don't know if you can, the smoke in the sky. But we were just walking on the beach and we saw smoke everywhere. And we're being informed that there's major cartel violence happening right now all over Puerto Vallarta. Apparently, they've captured a top-ranking cartel member, and when that happens, all-out war happens. A number of cars have been set on fire, motorcycles set on fire. In fact, there were some attendees of Anarchapulco who were in a taxi cab. Taxi drivers are apparently targeted by the cartel. They were they had their car shot at. The taxi driver was murdered, and the car was set on fire. All of their luggage has been burned.
And if you don't know, this is Dan Dix. So let's continue.
Including their clothes and passports, in fact. So it's a pretty scary, dire situation right now. We're being told, do not go out at all. Do not walk in the streets. Do not get in a taxi or an Uber. Do not go to the airport. In fact, the entire airport may be shut down right now because of this cartel violence. I mean, we heard Trump mentioning a while back that he's going to go after the cartel in Mexico. Is this the beginning of that? Are we witnessing it live? I don't know. But everybody here has just been instructed to leave the area immediately. The entire beach here is being shut down. It's clearing out. And really intense situation going on.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And this, again, if you read the headline there, this really gives a compare and contrast, and this is the narrative they're going to try to pitch. If something, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens in the United States, whether it's actually the cartel or even a false flag, because if something happens in U.S. soil, that really gives a complete narrative shift that everything has been based upon for the last election and the upcoming midterms, about ICE, about what's going on in Mexico, about how you want to prevent a lot of this violence from coming up to the United States, about how we have to control immigration, how we can't have illegal immigration, we only need legal immigration, and we have to background check the people kind of coming in. This is a complete narrative shift. This is only the very beginning. They're going to see the power of this, and come the summer, I'm expecting something to happen a lot more intentionally.
Also, I mean, hoping not, but
also, I mean, you're literally seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of videos coming out from the ground from Canadian and American citizens. All of this can be used by mainstream media in the United States to reframe contextually kind of what's going on in the United States, what has been going on. A lot of stories that one narrative was kind of spun, they can kind of completely change the framework of that now.
And it's also making it hard to ignore and hard to deny that it's going on.
It's going to be right now, you can ignore it because it flared up and then went down. But if this happens again and it happens
as of right now,
and it happens again on a more consistent basis, it's going to be very easy to reframe all that. If I can see that after one day, I'm sure the Trump administration sees this.
And yes, again, from Toronto Crime Watch, Puerto Vallarta is a war zone. Many Canadians and tourists are trapped in their resorts and villas as the CJ&J and security forces battle. And I will say, again, some of the videos coming out like this, I don't think this one specifically, are AI generated, but...
You don't have to keep saying it. I kind of profiled most of them to make sure they weren't.
This one I wasn't sure about. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was sure about this one. This one was authentic. Yeah, and the reason I knew this one was authentic was because there was another helicopter shot, and you can verify that it was the same fires from each place. So,
but it is a task and a duty to have to go through it because, again, even the same cartels are putting out a lot of these fake videos to create more panic and use that as almost warfare as well. And we have, I think this is another one from Mark Nixon.
Yeah, this is very specific. So you're going to see a helicopter in the distance. I grabbed this yesterday, and it's just to show they have military helicopters out. The U.S. deployed 6 Black Hawks down to the major 6 states that were kind of under attack or that they needed help. They gave them to the Mexican military, I believe, with intelligence operators working hand in hand.
Yes.
Oh, pause it. Rewind it. That sound you're hearing, these Blackhawks are equipped with heavy machine guns as well, and they're actually using them.
And it does say here that in the traditionally quiet and safe part of Mexico, which is Puerto Vallarta, and it's not because it has been CJNG controlled for a long time now. So while it didn't escalate to this level, and usually it would stay up far away from the tourist areas and the actual cities, it has been known to be, a simmering pot for a while.
Well, yeah, and what's coming back up out of this, and I mentioned it earlier, was that Fast and the Furious operation under Barack Obama, where thousands of weapons were transported in and supposedly were given to the cartels, along with RPGs. And that's the one big thing that happened yesterday. There were raids done on certain locations and RPGs were found. It was suspected these were military-grade RPGs from the U.S. and that it would have came in on the Fast and the Furious operation. Why do I kind of bring that up? Because we just watched a clip of a helicopter. Most of the clips of helicopters that I were watching yesterday, they were flying fairly low. What does that mean? That means they're susceptible to RPGs. If they're able to bring down one of these helicopters, that's going to really bring up this Fast and the Furious operation again. And if these were military grade RPGs from the U.S. military, I mean, Barack Obama's name is going to be coming up a lot more.
And a lot of conversation within Mexico and within political commentators, etc., independent content creators, are pointing out that a lot of the artillery and a lot of the equipment that the cartels have and have had access to do come from the United States, also from China, but also receiving training from, for example, the Ukraine during the war, understanding how to actually do modern warfare. And it's been almost clear that that's also what has been going on, but not admitted yet by, for example, the government. And we do continue to see and have more clips of tactics being used from Megatron. Cartels have fired to a grocery store and caught shoppers off guard.
Yeah,
again,
and I've seen another clip of this, and it's unverified right now, but the other clip, you can actually hear the explosion, and it was reported that there was 2 grenades thrown into this grocery store. So I don't know if that's 100% verified, but we'll just watch the clip here, but they are burning grocery stores.
Vámonos. Vámonos.
And again, doing it in an indiscriminate way with people inside, not warning anybody. We've also seen a lot of convenience stores burned down with the workers inside or people inside, and then left just to burn without any consideration for the people that were shopping there or going about their usual days, same as the ones that get taken out from their vehicles and either ended or just left their car burns.
Yeah, I would say this, though. It's different than if it was in Canada or the United States and they start burning down grocery stores. Here you have a lot of small convenience stores on every single corner that sell fruits and vegetables. So there are secondary sources here, where I think in the United States, almost everybody goes to these major grocery stores. Mm-hmm. So.
And there was another update from Oscar Ramirez closer to when we started From Real America's Voice, quote, federal government in the U.S. will provide security for tourists and deployment of military to Mexico, allegedly. And again, there has been a lot of talk as to how they can get the tourists and the people that have been stranded in Puerto Vallarta because of the closures of airports, of roads, and the unsafety of using cars or vehicles or even buses to get out of the areas. And it was pretty quiet yesterday as to what the strategic solution was going to be. So this might be one of them.
It's extremely important. Just today, breaking news, the head of the military and the head of the Department of Defense in Mexico just made out a statement and an interview said that this was a clear collaboration with the United States of America in regards to the United States providing the intelligence to do the execution by the federal government of Nemesio Oseguera El Mencho. The violence right now, it was increasing last night. It's here in the city of Tijuana that is connected to San Diego. There was still burning of vehicles continuously in several areas, but until now, schools have been off limits. Now they closed the schools. They closed the educational systems of elementary, junior high schools, and colleges. Businesses are closed for security reasons of the citizens. There has been multiple threats on social media groups by, these, particularly pages that they are in cahoots with the organized crime, telling the population that they're going to start shooting civilians after 10 o'clock at night. They stay still walking. It is a huge national security threat. I did a video and a report on a vehicle that was burned just steps away from the border wall. This tells you the level of audacity of the cartel, and they burned that vehicle in front of a post on the territory, in the American territory. This post that has a huge camera from the U.S. Customs that basically tells you that they did it on purpose, just to tell the American government, we know that you provided the information for our leader to be executed. So at this moment, the federal government has released statements that they will provide the security that it needs to be provided for tourists and also deployment of more military to the whole country of Mexico.
Yeah, and I think one of the big reasons you didn't see this kind of flare up on the border right away is there is a huge military presence from the U.S. A lot of people aren't aware of how many troops and how much equipment Donald Trump has moved to the border, as well as re-securing that border, re-fortifying that wall he had already built. He's building more permanent installations, and the amount of equipment there, if something happens there, they can have an immediate response, even if it is just giving that equipment directly over to the Mexican military and have them handle the situation, it's immediately available to handle that situation. When something happens this deep into the country, it's a lot harder to have an immediate response towards it.
Mm-hmm. But now also...
You're getting tired.
We both adjusted. Because I've been looking into this basically almost the whole day. And since yesterday, I've just been trying to figure out what's going on. And then having to discern between fake, real, reports from people on the ground, reports from people outside, etc. But almost finishing with this story now. And I do want to focus a little bit on the tourists that are stranded there, but also the tourists that are not going about it in the best way and are not taking it as seriously as they should be, and they're doing ridiculous things. But starting off with going back to Canada and those Canadians that, because of the TDS, were told to go to Mexico instead of the U.S.A. And Table Salt has a good commentary here saying the same 55% of Canadians who voted that the U.S.A. was the largest threat to world peace, because this was a poll, and 55% of people said that the U.S. was a bigger threat than Russia, China, any other country, are now the ones hiding in their hotel rooms listening to automatic gunfire in Mexico right now. Canadians are so clueless.
Wanting help from the American military.
And now they need help to be taken out of Mexico by the American military. But I do want to see the kind of narrative that was being framed even just this December from the CBC, which is Canadian state-sponsored media. Ryan Gertison says CBC ran this mid-December. Travel to the U.S., bad. Travel to Mexico, good. Just listen to where these people are wanting to travel instead of their usual winter vacations.
Charles Burt and Marilee Mollard are getting advice from their travel agent on where to travel this winter.
So, have you guys decided on where you would like to go?
Well, on the bucket list is Puerto Vallarta.
The Manitoba couple usually spends weeks or even months at a trailer park in Westlaco, Texas, but not this year.
Since the election of Trump and the insults that he placed on our country, 51st state and all of that garbage, we decided that, no, we're not going to spend money down there.
They're not the only ones making that decision. According to the Mexican Ministry of Tourism, the number of Canadians flying to Mexico increased by 11.3% between January and September compared to the year before, an increase of almost 200,000 tourists. MAHA Hotels International is seeing it at its 8 Mexican resorts.
Definitely in the last year, compared to the previous year, we have seen an increase of 22% of Canadians coming to our Mexican properties.
Meanwhile, the United States is experiencing what some analysts are calling the Trump effect. The U.S. National Travel and Tourism Office is reporting a 24% decrease in Canadian tourists in the first 6 months of this year.
Well, we are seeing really a meaningful realignment, as I would refer to, of Canadians booking less to the U.S. Year to date, we've seen on average a 37% decrease of new bookings from Canada to the U.S.
Yeah, there's tons to do in Puerto Vallarta. There's tons, and in all around.
Not right now.
So you won't be bored.
Good.
Perfect.
Back in Manitoba, where winter has settled in, this couple is looking forward to their Mexican vacation.
You can make the choice. You can support Canada, which is exactly what we did and are doing, and support Mexico.
Karen Pauls, CBC News.
Okay, and a lot of Canadians just don't realize no matter how much they diversify their economy, America is the one propping them up. They think they're doing Canada a service by not traveling to the United States or not buying American products. If America did the same thing to Canada, the country would shut off tomorrow is the thing. And they're lucky that Americans aren't as what would you say, vindictive as Canadians are, I guess.
But also not just to rah-rah for the United States, but also to understand where the insanity of the narrative that has been propagated for years now in Canada against the United States and against common sense policies that Trump has wanted to implement and has started to implement, it is getting Canadians in danger and putting them in danger by sending them off to a place where, yes, this kind of violence could have erupted at any time. Now, I will say, and I always say, that Mexico is generally safe, usually, but these kinds of things do happen, and you do have to be able to know where to go and where not to go, where to stay, where not to stay, where it gets more dangerous, etc. And that is something that most people weren't taking into consideration until yesterday.
Yeah, she's going to be drawn into more and more cooperation with the U.S. military. It's a slippery slope, and she's already starting to slide. I don't think there's really a way back for her now. It's just a matter of time until she gets to 100% cooperation. And you say, okay, what are the long-term benefits versus the short-term hurt? The short-term hurt, it's absolutely going to destroy the tourist industry. The long-term benefit is if they can actually clean up the country. Mexico really has no roof for its economy. If they can provide a safe country for mass manufacturing for the United States to kind of go back and forth, their manufacturing industry and a lot of under industries will emerge in Mexico, as well as the tourist industry will eventually come back. So it could have a huge upside, but the downside is going to be I would say it takes 3 to 4 years to handle something like this. Mm-hmm. And that's once she starts cooperating 100%.
And I also wanted to contrast that because Dandix is down there and has been able to report, and because we have not a personal connection, but I mean, we were both reporting in Vancouver for a while from wiretap media, Canadian mainstream media versus independent media. And some of the Canadian media was also down in Puerto Vallarta, but the contrast is just insane.
Our colleagues is down in Puerto Vallarta. Joining us now is CP24 journalist and our web writer extraordinaire, Joshua Freeman, with the latest on the developing story. Josh, I hate to bug you.
And I will say that one Canadian politician said that the 2SL, the alphabet community, and yes, Puerto Vallarta is a hub for gay people. So just keep that in mind.
I'm guessing you're on vacation.
Never try to go.
Mm-hmm.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you here live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
I am on vacation here. I'm here with a large party, and actually I'm a few kilometers north of Puerto Vallarta at the moment, in a resort area.
Just had the military driving past me, and as I understand it, I should not be around anywhere where the police or the military are.
And Andrew, you actually wouldn't know necessarily that anything was going on where I am.
Because they are the target right now. As you can see, this whole place is like deserted right now. Because
and I will say, I mean, it's not super smart of Dan Dix. I understand the drive and the investigative drive to go out there on the street, but maybe don't wear a Hawaiian shirt next time and look like a target, like a tourist.
And I'm betting he's wearing shorts. And one thing locals don't do in Mexico is they never wear shorts.
Yeah, especially in Mexico City. If you're on the beach.
A lot of people don't know that, though.
Yeah. So be safe, please, Dan.
Burning cars back there, burning cars right here, still smoldering.
There's a car behind it.
The situation is incredibly intense.
You just said that you didn't really know until you started seeing the alerts. What were the alerts?
So I'm in a large party with people spread out at several different resorts. Some people got no messages, but at least one person got a message on their phone saying there's activity in town, police activity. It's best to stay on the premises and not venture out too far.
As I'm sure you've already heard, there was a top drug lord cartel member, El Mencho, who has been killed. I believe there was a $15 million bounty on this man's head, and he is now dead. And that has caused this whole situation to pop off.
Okay, and you can leave that. And it's going to be very interesting over the next few days to see how much the mainstream media actually reports on this, especially the mainstream liberal media. They don't want this to get out. If this is a flare up and it only happens for a few days and it dies back down, they're going to want to act like this never happens, because this could reframe a lot of the narrative. That being said, that would be a huge benefit, because if this thing does rile up in the summertime again, I almost expect it to come back in the summertime with major operations. If that happens, it's going to be impossible to ignore on that time. And people are going to be pointing out the time that the liberal media tried to ignore this.
It will, well, if it does come back then by the summer, again, it's the World Cup. And at least Guadalajara and at least Jalisco were supposed to host some of the games, as well as Mexico City.
Well, think about this from a U.S. perspective. If they can get this little flare up and say, oh, well, they're going to have it under control, nothing happens to the World Cup, and then something happens when the World Cup is here, that is the best reframing architecture you could have for Donald Trump. So it would not surprise me if they run operations when the World Cup's here. Now, I don't think Claudia Sheinbaum would actually help with operations during the World Cup, but I'm not going to put it past the U.S. military to intentionally do operations on their own while the World Cup is here, because that would be the ultimate reframing. The world's eyes are going to be on FIFA at that time.
And Latinos, which is a Mexican media, I translated this, says reports claim that sponsors and organizations are calling for Mexico to be stripped of the 2026 World Cup hosting rights due to the unleashed violence. And these will be ongoing conversations. But again, there are more and more reports that there's conversations being had with FIFA and between the other host countries, Canada and the U.S., saying, hey, what if this happens again? The stadiums are also not even fully built yet. Some of them don't have electricity. And again, they found heads near one a few months ago, the newest, fanciest one of Guadalajara, of where this violence is taking place.
Yeah, I'll just bring up again, the violence in Brazil was far worse, yet they still held those major events a few years ago when it was a similar situation. They just had a massive military presence at that time. But when you unleash such a massive military presence, say at the World Cup or at these FIFA games, what happens is a lot of the other parts of Mexico is not going to have a very strong military presence at all, because it's going to be redispersed to that one region.
And again, Mexico doesn't have enough military members, and they stripped a lot of the training and powers and equipment from the ones that we did have, and that were not colluded with the cartels anyways.
Yeah.
But now let's read your comments, and then we'll finally move on to a different subject, which is personality politics. Joe Montana says, who do you think will take power for CJNG now? And do you think there'll be a big-ass cartel war like Sinaloa or against the Mexican military? I mean, again, I think he was a figurehead and, of course, very, in a way, beloved. So they're sending a message with all of this violence to both governments, I would say the U.S. and Mexico. But I do think the operations were already ongoing and being done by somebody else. Maybe the yogurt guy, maybe somebody else. But I don't think there'll be as big a power vacuum. Maybe between other cartels trying to take over because they see them weakened in a way. But I don't think it's going to be as vie for power as a lot of people think it is.
I think Claudia Sheinbaum prefers a cartel war, because that has cartel members kind of taking each other out, and allows her to frame herself as kind of the good guy, but being willing to stay out of it. The American military wants the Mexican military to do direct operations. This will create a situation where Claudia Sheinbaum will basically have to run into the American administration's arms. And again, it will be incredibly unfortunate for anybody living in Mexico, any civilians, anybody that's not involved with all of this, if either scenario happens. Yeah.
But I mean, we've been put at this point by not just the current government and the current party in power, but by decades of the mismanagement and corruption within the internal structures of the Mexican government. So again, I do lay a lot of blame upon Morena, AMLO, and Sheinbaum, but also all the other parties as well that have been allowing this collusion to continue to happen.
Yeah, and I've been watching a lot of analysts from the United States, former U.S. generals, people wargaming, different things that were going to happen. And they have laid out a ton of different strategies. And you would expect a lot of these strategies to be used simultaneously, but they're going to use some of these strategies and then there's going to be pushback. Maybe they were expecting that, but maybe they weren't, and they'll go away from that. So we'll have to see if they were expecting this pushback. If they are expecting this pushback, you're going to see another operation in a very quick manner. If it's more pushback than they thought, then you're not going to see another operation for quite a little bit of time, and you'll see a completely different operation, maybe a drone strike, something like that. They'll want to see what happens when they do a different type of operation, maybe hitting a manufacturing facility or not hitting a leader, and then see, well, do they have as much pushback when we don't grab an actual leader?
Mm-hmm. And Riv says, how misfortunate for the civilians and those lost in the mix. And of course, I mean, those are the unspoken victims, also because our own government doesn't like to speak much about the victims of the violence in general, but cartel violence especially, because it's not convenient for them. So today there was a statement by the head of the military saying that they lost about 30-something members during the operation and during the fighting that went on yesterday, but almost no mention of the civilians and of those left either hurt or ended fully by just being in the way, by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I do unfortunately think we'll continue to see an increase in kidnappings and other forms of violence and of sending messages, maybe in a quieter way. But up to this month as well, we've seen the endings of 2 children that were very talked about in the media and on X, but not spoken about almost at all by the government itself, because it likes to avoid those conversations.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see, I mean, if the cartel's smart, and I think they are smart enough, they're going to burn down corporations, corporate buildings. They're not going to want to go after hits on the civilian population, because if they do that, Claudia Sheinbaum is going to have a direct reaction. The cartel knows that she has the option of going to the American military and saying, give me 100% cooperation right now. She can't do that unless she has an outcry from the people. Right now, she doesn't have an outcry from the people.
She's had an outcry for the people, from the people for the past 8 years.
Not necessarily.
7.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
If they start hitting a lot of civilian, it's not like you're trying to portray it like not right now. I talk to people and it's not like that.
It is.
Okay. We'll agree, we'll agree to disagree.
But the problem is,
it's a situation that has been happening for so long, they've been desensitized to it.
Yes, and that's a problem. But we are seeing more and more. I mean, the marches that we've even gone to are because of the violence, the ongoing violence, and the lack of solving it that the current government, and the collusion and the almost emboldening it to continue to happen.
When you talk to politics about people here, it's just passing in conversation is cartel violence. Like anything else, they're more focused on the economy. When the one subject matter that comes up is cartel violence, we need her to go to Donald Trump, and there's an outpouring of that sentiment amongst the whole country, amongst the news, mainstream and independent. That's when she'll go to Trump, and she'll have no other choice. And then the cartels do not want that to happen. So if I were them, I would avoid civilian targets as much as possible.
And the thing is, the way they operate usually is
because she hasn't always had,
without caring about civilian targets. It's not that they're going after civilian targets; is that they just don't care about whoever's on the bus, on the car.
You have to think like the cartels. When it was Bill Clinton in office, when it was Barack Obama in office, when it was Joe Biden in office, they didn't have to worry about the president going to the president of the United States and getting 100% cooperation and a mass military force coming into the country. Under Donald Trump, that option is there for her. That's never been there. And so the cartel, I think, knows that as well.
We'll see. Okay. Hopefully not. Hopefully, I mean, it does stop and civilians stop being targeted and used and being, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I don't think it will.
The cartels are also going to have to realize the best way to avoid this is the 2028 election. So the more violence they do, I think the more it helps Donald Trump. And the more it's going to help him in the midterms and the 2028 election. If they can get somebody like Gavin Newsom in there, they don't have to worry about this anymore. Because Gavin Newsom's
right now, I think it's reaction. I don't know if they're thinking that far ahead right now.
Well, right now it's reaction, but trust me, they're going to have long-term viability. That's why a lot of their major assets are no longer drugs. It's everything else. So,
Humans. Lyle Norman says, yes.
well, I
Lyle
would
says-
say business, legitimate. They're weaved into legitimate businesses now a lot.
And the government. Lyle Norman says, hope all is well where you are. Again, we're close to thank you. And we're close to Mexico City. So again, Mexico City is one of those places that it mostly, if at least for up to now, does not get really touched by this because they understand that it's the one place they can't really go into. There's here small factions and things happening here and there, but we don't see the types of horrible things that we're seeing elsewhere.
Well, it's heavily militarized here. It's the crown jewel of Mexico as far as the government goes. So they're going to make sure it's extremely protected. They're always going to have not only a military presence, but a reserve military presence. It's also where all business is done. Like I just said to you, cartels are weaved into a lot of legitimate businesses. I would say they probably make more off their legitimate businesses now than illegitimate. So they would only be hurting themselves to kind of come into Mexico City.
But elsewhere,
In a heavy-handed way. Yeah. They're already here in a much, I would say, toned down way.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Oh, that's it.
I was trying to check if there were more, but no.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wasn't actually expecting to get through the Mexico region today. I think we had to take out a lot of stories because as we were verifying them, there was a lot of AI videos and things that we had to take out. I did add some other stories, so let's kind of go through them. We'll start with personality politics.
Yes.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And of course, we're going back to Candace Owens because this week, allegedly, she's going to release her whole Erica Kirk documentary, whatever she wants to call it, investigation. Go ahead.
No, she released a trailer. I was expecting her to have an episode today. No, she released a trailer of the series, the videos that are going to come out about the wife of Charlie Kirk, as she calls it.
And we probably will. The wife of Charlie, she called it. So like the wife of Chucky, but...
Yeah, we've been covering it pretty heavy. I was originally heavily on Candace Owens' side. I, at some point, woke up. I just realized there was nothing there. I'm expecting nothing to come out on this series, but a bunch of empty allegations. There have been some whistleblowers that have worked on this documentary series with Candace, and they're saying it's supposed to be a nothing burger.
And you've been, you were heavily on her side and you were trying to defend her. I was always on the side of she's insane, she's making up things. And this whole going after Erica Kirk is a new low, I think, that we haven't seen from many other influencers other than the ones that are also feeding her information and using each other, which she profiled mostly just other people in this new trailer that she came out with of people that have agreed with her and continue to support her. Like, I forget the name of that guy. Jimmy Dore, etc.
Myron Gaines. She's pretty much trying to have a lot of influencers on there to show there's a consolidated front and that she's not crazy. But a lot of the evidence she kind of previewed in there, I had already heard before, and I kind of went down those rabbit holes, and it didn't seem like there was not much there. So I'm going to be surprised if she uncovers something here. I think it's going to be a lot of accusations and innuendos like she's kind of been having so far.
And Graham Allen actually came out with an interview of someone that spoke of a woman that's very close to Erica and Charlie and has been for a long time that actually had spoken with Candace Owens, like Candace now, spoken with Candace Owens a few days ago for, I believe, this investigation and trying to debunk a lot of her claims and let her know, hey, no, I was there when a photo shoot was happening that Candace has been claiming is a thing that isn't, or I was there with the Romanian donation of gifts thing. And it was very interesting, and it was good to see this come out before this whole investigative series comes out. And I think more and more receipts will start pouring out, hopefully, as Candace continues to spiral.
People are going to start asking for real evidence at some point. That's what happened to me. That's how I kind of woke up. I thought she was going to have evidence because she had a lot of innuendos. Her husband seemed to be heavily connected to MI6, so I figured intelligence agencies would feed her something eventually. Nothing really came out, and at a certain point, she had not enough hard evidence. That being said, if she does come out with some hard evidence, I'm more than willing to look at it. I still do watch the show because I report on it. And yeah, but it's not just me now. I've seen a lot of other people that were originally on Candace's side kind of woke up, and if she doesn't have anything, more and more people are going to start to realize there's nothing there.
And not that Michael Knowles was really on her side when she went insane and started going after Charlie and Erica, but he did finally speak up a bit stronger against her, which a lot of the Daily Wire figures, aside from Ben Shapiro, had not been doing. So let's see what he finally said. Natalie Jean-Basner says Michael Knowles finally admits Candace is a leftist demon.
They said there was this moment of unity, and we had to stop it. The Democrats had to stop it. The liberal activists had to stop it. The liberal media had to stop it. Demons, I think, had to stop it. Literal demons had to stop it. They didn't like that unity. And then what does the right do? The right reacts to that, and the right is always infighting. And then there are all these jealous, jockeying people who are always, that's just constantly true on the right. They're always just jockeying for position, sometimes motivated by ideology, often just motivated by personal gain. And everyone's always fighting with each other. And you know that's not my MO. I try not to get involved in that because it's a lose-lose. The people who are always trying to do the infighting, they love it when you talk about them. That's what they want. And the people who don't just do it for attention, but the ones who actually are doing it for ideological struggles, there's no benefit to coalitional unity if you talk about it. You don't want to give these people what they want. You especially don't want to give CNN what it wants. Keep your eyes on the prize. Because the left recognizes that unity in the wake of Charlie's assassination, which we had, at least for a little bit, and maybe I think in the real world, we actually substantially do still have that kind of unity, that kind of focus, that kind of clarity of purpose, that kind of clarity of who opposes us. It's very, very potent. And they're trying to take it down. And their real issue is not even with Charlie Kirk or Erica or U.S.A. or Pete Hegseth or Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance or Donald Trump. You know who their real issue is with? It's the subject of the documentary. Their real issue is with Christianity. Christianity is a guiding political principle, which means that their real issue is with Christ. Their real issue is with God.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And yeah, there's definitely a war on Christianity. And I talked about this. I've been showing a lot of mainstream media articles kind of come out, and we've reviewed it in the past, that they're preparing for there is a rise of Christian nationalism coming up, and they're very scared of it because it unifies a lot of different groups. Intersectionality is the thing that the left uses, and they try to give each group kind of what they want in order to unify a collective base. The right is kind of giving Christianity as a non-moving moral foundation, which I think works very well.
But also the left has started to put on the mask of religion and having to infiltrate those spaces to continue to dupe at least some of the population there. But I think what Candace is doing is even more insidious in the fact that she's just lying and has captured a wide audience of people that will defend her no matter what evidence comes out. Almost like a cult.
Okay, let's go into the next article. I wouldn't call it a cult. I was in there at one point. So.
Yep, and I rescued you out of it with logic and common sense. You will talk more about this than I will.
I'm actually bringing this up not to review the fight itself, but more what's going on in the business here because it's fairly interesting.
Okay, so Championship Round says, quote, Ronda Rousey says Dana White offered her the largest PPV pay-per-view deal in UFC history before the move to Paramount Plus, but wasn't willing to offer a guaranteed amount once the new deal was in place.
Okay, and you can play the clip and then I'll kind of talk about it. And it really says what's going on in the state of sports today.
But you didn't end up with Dana, you ended up with Jake Paul. Is that part of the saga?
Yes, it very much is. Well, originally I wanted to do it for New Year's. I went to him and I'm like, dude, you always say that I'm the best fighter you ever worked with. Like, reward me for it. Don't punish me for being easy to work with. Give me the best deal you ever gave anybody. And he goes, all right, I'm going to go back and get you the best deal I ever had. So he came back and he's like, literally brought me a deal where I would make more per pay-per-view buy than anybody in history. Like if I hit my historical numbers, which I know we would have been able to exceed, I would have made as much as I did in my entire career. But Gina needed more time. And it happened to go to the other side of when ESPN deal and the pay-per-view model would be ending and they would be going to streaming. They didn't want to set a precedent of giving me the guaranteed money that I deserve because once I raise that tide, it lifts all the boats. They just made a $7.7 billion deal at Paramount. So it's in their best interest, actually not to put on the best fights possible, but to spend as little as money as possible so that they can keep it. Dana's now legally obligated to maximize shareholder value. It's not just about, proving the concept of fighting. Okay, and you can leave it there. And yeah, that was a $7.7 billion deal they got with Paramount, yet they pay their athletes the least of any professional sport.
I'm big into MMA. It's the one sport that I do watch a lot. I used to teach jiu-jitsu. I'm trying to get back into it, but man, after 10 years off, it's very, very hard. It's like starting over again. Well, that being said, in the original model, it was on pay-per-view. There's no longer pay-per-views, and it has a very much a corporate structure now. They don't want to set precedents of high pay or specialty contracts because then other athletes will kind of ask for that. And that's why they offered such a big deal under the old model. In the new model, they're unwilling to do that. And you're seeing less and less and less stars within the UFC. Most of the stars that exist today are from the previous generation. I don't know if they're going to be able to make a new crop of stars. It seems like they can have a one-off here or a one-off there, but they're having real trouble developing new stars within the UFC, even though the UFC is more popular than ever. How the UFC used to work, their entire model was based around promotion and promoting one star and building a character and then building multiple other characters for them to fight. They no longer do that. Their main branding is the UFC first, and then everything else comes kind of under that.
It's interesting because that's kind of what's happening with Hollywood in general. They're not able to generate new stars and they don't really know what to do with their own revenue models or how to promote movies or how to do anything right anymore. And with the threat of AI that we're seeing, I think it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting you say that's the Hollywood model because I think it's WME that owns the UFC and they're directly involved into Hollywood. They're one of the biggest owners of properties within Hollywood.
But now we're going on to health real quickly. Then I believe what's next? Religion and then the US.
Yeah.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
And just a quick story here, but another good thing from the Trump administration to highlight from Trump supporter, quote, in a stunning declaration, Stephen Miller unveiled the plan to reform U.S. education, emphasizing teaching children to love America and be patriots. Oh, what a novel concept, while ensuring federal funds do not support communist ideology.
Yeah, well, this is a complete opposite model of what's kind of in there. They're actually teaching people to hate America and
hate themselves.
Build a whole different ideology within the school system, and they're using teacher unions and these schools to do it. So it's very interesting that they're linking this with federal funding. I think this could potentially make a difference.
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country. So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous communist woke culture that was destroying this country, where we were led to believe that men were women, that women were men, that racial discrimination was good, that merit was bad, and that safety and physical security mattered less than the feelings of liberal ideologues. The children will be
taught. And this is a great policy change. We'll see what happens when they actually implement it. Will it have enough penetration to kind of get into blue states?
But it's also interesting that was Stephen Miller, the Homeland Security advisor. And speaking of what's happening right now in Mexico, what might happen in the US, and what was allowed to happen for the longest time with open border policies, and now ICE having to actually go and get the criminals and everybody else who got into the US illegally, it's important to also highlight the framework of how children are seeing it and how we're seeing protests and kids going out in the middle of school and getting injured or injuring others while doing it because of the ideology that has been taught within schools, which does create a security threat for the whole country by saying now you have to love and support those that would seek to do harm to the country.
Well, this is a complete change in policy, and it's very interesting because other Western countries used to have that same woke policy where they teach you to hate your country, teach you to hate yourself, and just kind of really educate in suicidal empathy almost. I'm glad to see the United States is making the shift, but countries like Canada, the UK, and the rest of Europe should kind of follow their lead, or at least I hope they would follow their lead. We'll kind of see what happens. I doubt it, but...
Yeah. And now we have a story that I don't know why you put in religion, but we'll go to that story next. It is a pretty big story that has been hitting the US.
UFOs, and I'll explain it when we get there.
Okay, let's go to religion.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
So why did you put it in?
So we had well, it was mainly Mexico today, but I was gathering a few other stories in case we got through the Mexico story. I watch a lot of conspiracies, a lot about UFOs. There is a theory.
I do not support. I do not. What's it called? Endorse. I do not endorse this message.
There is a theory that aliens are actually demons. You don't believe in aliens or demons.
No,
So.
I do not endorse this message. This is all what he thinks.
Okay, let's go into the story though, because it is.
Yeah, it is interesting. From Mark Nixon, quote, Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to release the UFO files. Are we about to learn the truth about aliens?
UFO enthusiasts are over the moon with President Trump, who has ordered the Pentagon and other government agencies to release files related to flying saucers, UAPs, and alien life. It comes after former President Barack Obama weighed in on the subject of extraterrestrials.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51.
And okay, yeah, so it seems like we're in the age of disclosure now. Both Barack Obama and Donald Trump, who have different normal ideologies, one conservative, one Democrat, are both kind of racing to kind of disclose what they know here. There's supposed to be a series of files released under Donald Trump. There was already the documentary that came out that used a lot of high-ranking members within the Trump administration to confirm that there is alien life and craft. One of those big officials was Marco Rubio in that documentary. That documentary was called The Age of Disclosure. We're getting more and more information released every year. I'm expecting 2026 to be the biggest year of disclosure. Donald Trump has confirmed within the next few months a massive trove of documents are going to be released. So.
Might be that, or it might be because right now on Cashy, there's a lot of money invested into, and again, I'm not giving investment information, but there's a lot of money in if there will be, all the information will be released by 2027 regarding alien life and UFOs. So maybe they both have just a lot put into Kashi.
Well, anybody that goes down the UFO rabbit holes in a lot of this, 2027 is supposed to be the big year. Aliens are supposed to come and reveal themselves, according to a lot of sources. So we'll see if that happens. But that's why people think they're kind of racing for disclosure in 2026 before 2027 kind of comes.
Let's move on to U.S. politics.
You don't want to talk UFOs more? I can make a whole show on this.
No. Let's move on to just regular.
What about Inner Earth?
No,
Okay.
Regular U.S. politics do not endorse. Don't listen to him. And yes, because we got through the Mexico story pretty quick, we are just moving on to
U.S. politics.
Yeah, run-of-the-mill U.S. politics from Chief Nerd, quote, Bernie Sanders, to introduce a national wealth tax to make billionaires leaving California pay their fair share. Of course he is.
So the issue comes down to whether or not we ask the wealthiest people in this country, many of them living right here in California, to start paying their fair share of taxes so that 3 million people in the state can get health care. And I think the answer is pretty obvious. Yes, that's what we've got to do.
Well, we've already seen Larry Page, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Larry Ellison start to move out of the
isn't
state.
that something?
No, but the argument...
No, here's what the argument is.
Yeah.
The argument is, it is outrageous. What they are saying to the people of California is, it doesn't matter to us. We're billionaires, and we're getting richer and richer, and if children die because they can't get to a doctor, tough luck. We have the power, California, and we are going to punish you. Now, they lie a lot, these guys. When Mamdani was running for mayor in New York City, you may recall, all the rich guys were going to leave. It didn't happen. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. Who knows? But the idea that they are saying that it's okay for children to die, people not get the health care they need, and they're going to punish the people of California, that is outrageous. And by the way,
and pause it.
That is why I believe.
And then we'll watch the rest of his argument here. But he's trying to make this emotional argument, and we know a lot of this healthcare that he's saying people need this healthcare. It's actually illegal immigrants, and it's taking away from the system. They want to tax billionaires. They're going to devastate their state. A lot of the biggest businesses have already left. It costs a lot to move a
business.
A major corporation out of California, as well as the founders, but they're leaving. They know this wealth tax is coming, and they're leaving in mass right now.
Introducing a national wealth tax. Where are they going to run that? Maybe they'll run to Saudi Arabia. I suspect that's where they'll go. But, you got to, at some point, you got to stand up to these guys.
But that's the Newsom argument, that we should do it nationally, but if we do it just here,
somebody's
it's going to hurt California's revenue.
I'm going to introduce the legislation, and it ain't going to pass right away. Yeah. And if California can do it, this will be a message, by the way, not only to America, It'll be a message to the world because this oligarchy is taking over countries all over the world. So this is a big deal.
Okay, yeah, and it's important to listen what they just said. They want to do it nationally. They brought Newsom's name directly in there. We know Newsom is the front runner for the Democrats. I'd be shocked if it was anybody else. He's going to definitely impose a nationwide wealth tax that's going to create a ton of businesses to flee the country. I mean, the amount of manufacturing boom you're having come into the country now under Trump, it's unprecedented. The U.S. is growing at a faster rate than China. This is the first time in, I think, over 2 decades, and Trump's managed to do that in 1 year. And how he did that is he's allowing a lot of these corporations, if they can get their manufacturing facility built within 1 to 2 years, they can write the next 10 years off within those first 2 years.
But also, when talking about California and they need more money and they want more money to find illegal healthcare or whatever it is for, Bernie Sanders there says, oh, the little kid is going to die because he can't get medical help. Again, using emotion and manipulation to get people to agree with you. But what they never talk about is the actual mismanagement of the state that has gotten them into the position where they now need to find more money under more rocks and under more billionaires that they want to blame for everything, when in reality, making the billionaires leave is also making a lot of jobs and people become more desperate with jobs and wealth actually leaving the state.
Yeah, it's not like you can just tax the billionaires. The billionaires have enough money where they're going to be able to move. And wherever they move, they're going to move their businesses. And wherever those businesses and those individuals move to is going to have a massive boom. And there's going to be an add-on effect for jobs and a lot of other things.
But also what happens when you implement a wealth tax to the richest who can actually leave the state? Well, then it continues to, and it continues to happen. It'll trickle down until it reaches the people that can't actually pay for that, but now they're considered to be the wealthier ones. Well, it just ends up covering everybody.
Well, it's actually very interesting you said that, because they pass this wealth tax and then they'll just say, oh, it will bring an extra $1 trillion in. So what they do is they earmark that money for a bunch of things. Then the billionaires leave. They can't get that money anymore. So they have to increase everybody else's taxes because they're not willing to unspend the things they've already spent the money on. And that's how you get an increase in taxes.
But again, from David Hamadi says, quote, California's proposed billionaire tax, which Gavin Newsom didn't oppose until too late, the billionaire said flood the state, is going to destroy the state before it even passes.
Yeah, I think most of the U.S. politics today is based around California. There's a lot of information coming out.
Bring in board-certified MD and research scientist, Dr. Houman Hamadi. Dr. Hamadi, great to have you on the show. So after Steven Spielberg announcing his departure, Lydia Moynihan posted this. She's a New York Times reporter. She's a friend of the show. She posted this to Gavin Newsom, replying to this. Hollywood legend Steven Spielberg becomes the latest billionaire to ditch California ahead of proposed wealth tax. Lydia posts, please have the self-awareness to realize your politics created this mess, and pretty please leave those failed politics in California. Yeah, leave them with us, because we could really use them, Doctor.
Trace, the billionaires see the canary in the coal mine, and that is the fact that this tax will not end with the billionaires. In fact, there'll be no billionaires left to tax. So
there's only a couple of hundred of them anyway.
Exactly. So once they're all gone, it's not going to take a lot. They can all fit into one plane or 200 private jets. What's going to happen? It's going to move to everyone else, and it's going to end up becoming a middle class and working class tax, and that's ultimately what they want. It's like property tax on your money, rather than just on your house and on your stocks and on your retirement plan and on your painting that you inherited from your grandma and your fine china and your engagement ring. You name it. This is going to destroy the state because the people who can leave will leave, and the people who can't are going to be left stuck paying that bill. And the way they can fix this is just by not spending so much. We don't have a revenue problem. We have the highest income, property, sales taxes, gas taxes. But despite that, they want more. There's a problem with that.
The spending problem. Spencer Pratt on the Democrats and the California fire rebuild said the following. Watch.
All these things, I'm like, it's business as
okay,
usual.
You can leave it there. I don't want to get dinged for.
I do love that Spencer Pratt has become, because he was from, what was that reality show? The Hills? One of those reality, Newport, I don't remember. What of those? I think it was The Hills. I never watched it, but he was always kind of just there. He was a husband of Heidi Montag. And now during the fires, but a little bit before that, he has become very outspoken and very clear on just his own values and his own morals, and has been giving it to the world, which is interesting coming from someone you wouldn't expect. So I do give kudos to. And they have like goats and a farm and a bunch of things, and they've become an interesting couple to watch.
Well, as Hollywood starts to de-evolve here, I think we're going to see more people realizing there's no more gravy train, and they're going to start showing their real values and who they are, because the new media seems to be independent media, social media, YouTube.
And what real people are actually wanting to listen to and pay attention to. Continuing on with California and its demise right before Gavin Newsom tries to do his run for president. From Wall Street Apes, quote, oil refineries in California have begun closing due to new regulations by Gavin Newsom. Sounds like Canada. In the last 2 weeks, gas prices have already increased 40 cents and are expected to keep climbing. Average gas price now is $4.58 cents.
California gas prices have jumped 40 cents in 2 weeks. You're not crazy in this respect. You notice the gas prices going up again. We had a nice little break for a second. Well, now up 40 cents in 2 weeks. That's because Gavin Newsom allowed the refineries to close and leave the state, and we are now feeling it. The statewide average is now standing at $4.58 per gallon. That's up from $4.46 just a week ago and $4.18 just 14 days ago. That's a big jump, guys, and that's according to AAA. Energy experts say that the spike is tied directly to shrinking refinery capacity in the state.
A lot of people may not know, but California has a ton of oil in the ground other than Texas. I think it's the second largest state for refining, and they're absolutely shutting all these refinery plants down, and they don't have an option to replace that. So the only other option is to bring it in from out of state at an increased cost. I would expect gas prices to go up even further in California.
And again, Canada has just gone through this for the past 10 years.
Specifically, Valero's refinery, which was a key supplier to Northern California, that's in the process of getting out of town. This follows other pullbacks, including the closure of Phillips 66 in Los Angeles, which has reduced California's ability to produce its own gasoline. We're no longer independent, and that has driven up costs at the pump. This is a new report from Bloomberg saying that California is increasingly relying on imports from the Bahamas. And apparently, they are taking this long route via the Panama Canal, which adds to the price.
And
we took in more gasoline.
That's absolutely crazy. I thought they were bringing it in from Texas. They're bringing it in from a completely another country.
But also, I will say I think we showed a clip, but there's been clips going around of California residents at the gas station and at the pump saying how these prices are insane. Trump, this is all your fault. You said that Trump was going to make gas prices be lower.
No, they're saying Trump needs to explain himself, and they don't understand the disconnect that Gavin Newsom is the reason oil prices are going up and gas prices are going up in California. Trump has national averages way down, the lowest they've been in a long, long time. So.
And finally, we did show a while ago the clip from AOC from the Munich Security Conference where she didn't know how to answer a question regarding China and Taiwan.
It really got to her, this one. Wow, her voice is going out. She looks like she just got a Fabinder.
If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours of discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth, I'm afraid the issue is not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks. If you think that I don't understand.
Why would she even make that video? Like, she sounds like a lizard person there.
And I don't think she was thinking when she paused. I just genuinely think she had no idea what to say.
And we'll go into Canada now, I guess, if we have no comments.
No comments. Okay. So let's go to Canada. And Canada. Oh, and good news, actually, from Canada, at least from Canadians and actual people who care about the country, or the Alberta at least.
Oh, yeah, this was great news. We cover the Alberta independence movement a lot. Tomorrow's show will be all about the Alberta independence movement. I got a ton of stories gathered. I thought I would put one in today in case we had time to get to it. And I thought this was the most heartwarming story of all of them.
Yeah, so from Rise of Alberta, massive turnout in Yuma, Arizona, as over 300 Albertan snowbirds lined up to sign the Alberta independence petition because they don't have TDS, they were not stuck in Puerto Vallarta, and they actually want to save their province.
Well, and we talked about this, but now there's a video coming out of how many people were actually there, and a great little video.
That's hot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And you say, why are so many Albertans in the United States because number one, it's winter, but number two, it's some of the highest income earners in Canada are from Alberta. So they always go on vacation. They all have RVs. Yeah.
And they were, I mean, we did see older people there lined up, but again, it is because they are the smart boomers that decided
Well, they go RVing every year.
yeah, and that decided to save their province. Okay, let's see someone that is
Oh, this was
doing
actually a good statement from Polyev coming today. It's not far enough for me, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
after like multiple steps all over the place.
But he's been filming a lot of videos in grocery stores and this and that, and they very often come off inauthentic. He did one the other day with, I think it was a friend of his, and he's a fitness influencer. It didn't come off very well. I thought this video actually did come off very, very good. I don't like the fact that he's come out as such a nationalist and so against the Alberta independence movement when Alberta supported him when they needed it, but now he's looking for a different riding.
From Pierre Poilievre, quote, conservatives will introduce a motion tomorrow to cut back deluxe benefits for refugees and deport non-citizens and foreign nationals who do crime.
Fact, 6 million Canadians can't get access to a family doctor. Fact, it takes 30 weeks for the average Canadian to see a specialist. Fact, while you can't get health care, Liberals force you to pay higher taxes to fund deluxe supplementary health care benefits for asylum claimants who've been rejected, who are non-Canadians, non-permanent residents, and have never paid taxes in this country. Fact. The reality is that these services include many things that are not covered by your public plan, things like physiotherapy. Fact. The cost of providing these deluxe supplementary benefits to asylum claimants has gone up by 1,000% under the Liberals to over $1 billion. Money diverted away from our health care, jamming up our system and increasing our wait lines. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system with numbers that overwhelmed our jobs, our health care, and our housing. Not only that, they've made it so that when someone is here making an asylum claim and they commit a crime, they could indeed have lower sentences than if a Canadian had committed the very same crime. This is unfair, and it's time that it changed. That's why tomorrow, Conservatives are moving a motion to change it. The motion would force a review and a cutback in benefits to asylum claimants to ensure that non-citizens and non-permanent residents do not get superior health benefits than Canadians.
And pause it there.
Second.
And he says they're not going to get superior health care. They shouldn't get any health care. If they get health care, they should have to buy it before they come into the country, period. If they're not citizens, you're taking away from the pool of health care that the citizens are putting into.
At university, I had to pay for healthcare within my tuition when I went to university in Canada because I was a student.
And it would ensure that those asylum claimants who are here and have been rejected only get life-saving emergency care and not special care. And third, it would ensure that judges give the full sentence and allow for a complete deportation of foreign nationals who are non-citizens that commit crime in our country. Enough is enough. We can't allow foreign criminals to take advantage of our system, false refugee claims to overwhelm the services that you pay for. We need a system that allows you, as a hardworking Canadian, to benefit from all that you've contributed to Canada. Quick and high-quality health care, good jobs and housing, safe streets.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And the fact, like...
It's just common sense.
It's common sense. The fact that this stuff is already happening in Canada, but it's not happening to the extent it's happening in the UK and Europe, but it soon will be if they continue on the same path. But the Conservatives already run provinces like Alberta with Danielle Smith, and she's putting a lot of these same questions on the ballot right now. It's like, just take care of it. Like, you have the majority within Alberta, so you should be able to fix it. You don't need to make these polling questions. We all know she's trying to undermine the Alberta independence movement vote by confusing by confusing the ballot with contradictory questions.
Yes, and another infuriating update regarding British Columbia and the shooting that happened there. There's a few children fighting for their lives from the
Okay, let's play
shooting.
the video.
Yes, Moose on the Loose says, and I'll just play it.
There's a story here that just broke that's absolutely insane. Wall Street Journal just broke that Jesse Van Rootselaar, the monster that took out 8 people in Tumbler Ridge, yeah, it turns out he was planning this on ChatGPT. He was typing in queries. ChatGPT knew about this. OpenAI knew about it 7 months ago, and they told no one. They did not tell the RCMP. They were flagged about this. They obviously discussed this and decided, you know what, we're not going to release this to the police. And now this blood is on their hands. What is going to happen with this? There needs to be laws that protect Canadians. This company, they could have stopped this. They could have sent some information over to the police, and This didn't have to happen. This is on them now. They're a part of this. There's a story here that just broke.
As much as I don't like the fact that they didn't give the information, it also shines a light on the fact that they're tracking everything you put into these AI services.
Yep. And allegedly, OpenAI did say that they didn't want to make it and escalate it to the point where they reached out to police and they weren't sure case by case basis, etc. But then this happened.
You're already following, you're already spying on everybody. Yeah. So like,
But let's now see. I thought this video was not real, and I kept saying I think she's putting it on.
I didn't think so at all.
But yeah, you didn't think so, and I do think she had a video earlier. So this is an American that moved to Canada, and now she's not liking it as much. It's not as great as she thought it would be.
I think she's realizing maybe Trump's holding the U.S. economy together a lot better than the Canadians are.
Yeah, because I think she did have a video before this explaining she was going to go move to Canada, but now she has. Eric Doherty says, quote, leftists who fled America for Canada because of Trump are panicked and realizing their socialist dream has horrible affordability.
I'm a scholar on the far right who has fled the United States to Canada, and I need help. The situation in Canada is absolutely dire. For Americans who don't know, the housing crisis here is worse than in the United States. I lived in LA for 6 years, and I have not faced rent as bad as here. When my partner, our cat, and our dog fled the United States, we headed north with the goal of being close to where our families are located, which is on the West Coast. So we are now in British Columbia. More specifically, we are in the Sea to Sky Highway in the Greater Vancouver area. We are attempting to find housing in this.
I have no idea why she didn't just flee to Washington State or Oregon. They're extremely woke. They're like citadels for wokeness. She would still be able to work, have all those benefits. I recommend she goes back down there. Yeah. Let's finish watching the video though.
The western side of this region. My partner and I are here on a visitor visa, which is a 6 months possible stay for Americans. But while you're here on a visitor visa, you can't work. So we are currently surviving off of what savings we could get together before we fled the United States. And that's not terribly much. And in Canada, I think it's actually the cost of living crisis is worse here, especially when you are shut out of the healthcare system, when you can't access any of the resources that Canadians have access to. And that's understandable. You know, I'm not a citizen of the country, but it is making the financial.
Also, it is understandable that you're not a citizen of the country, so you shouldn't get free healthcare. You shouldn't get free things because you're on a visitor visa and you didn't plan far enough ahead to try to get a job, so you have a worker visa.
Situation dire because we can't work. Because there are 2 adults, a cat and a dog, we are looking for more than a room, but a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom for free or below market rates. And I know that's a huge ask, but that's what we need. Canadians have been asking where I'm located and what I need because y'all are such lovely human beings. This is the ask. If you could help me by interacting, reposting this video.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the girl's absolutely crazy. There's blue states, there's red states. If you don't like what Trump's doing, you have Washington State, you have Oregon. They're just as woke as Vancouver. You'll like it just as much. They're almost identical.
And also, Canadians themselves are suffering through this crisis, not being able to find housing, not being able to eat, having to go to food banks, and now there's this American saying, oh, it's horrible here. I thought it was paradise. That's what happens with socialism.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'm glad finally somebody kind of actually went there and then started to report on what's actually going on. From the Post-Millennial, quote, at the rally for Ukraine in Toronto, Pierre Poilievre explains how, as conservatives, they've always supported Ukraine.
Today, we stand united. As conservatives, we've always supported Ukraine. It was Prime Minister Harper who looked Vladimir Putin in the eye after the invasion of Crimea and said, get out of Ukraine. It was Prime Minister Harper who led Operation Unifier after that fateful invasion. It was Prime Minister Harper who forced the G8 to become the G7 by kicking Putin out. Now we must continue to fight on. Conservatives called on the government, which agreed.
Okay, you can leave it there. And yeah, they kicked Russia out of the G8. It's now the G7. They didn't want them in NATO. They didn't want them to be part of Europe. The Canada has sent more money over to Ukraine than any other country in the world per capita. And they also have the largest unprotected border in the world with who? With Russia. They're completely aligned with NATO. If NATO creates a World War III with this thing, like Europe wants to do, Canada's going to be in a very bad place. The propaganda has been very, very heavy since the beginning of this war. So they're definitely going to send Canadian troops when they can.
And the fact that Trump and the conservatives in the U.S. have been saying, hey, we're sending an outsized amount of money to fund a war we don't even want to be involved in.
Well, and it's not even going to the war. A lot of it's going to corruption. They need a peace treaty. That's what Trump wants to kind of focus on. The Europeans don't want that. They want to take the $74 trillion of Russian assets.
But here, once again,
natural resource assets.
Yeah, but here, once again, the conservatives in Canada are taking the same position as the liberals. So it's just the same, like you get no choice, basically. The post-millennial says at a rally for Ukraine in Toronto, Premier Doug Ford calls Putin a savage.
My friends, I can tell you, we will always have your backs. We will never, ever relent. And we have to continue the fight against that tyrant, savage.
And pause it there. Like, we're going to have your back. We're never going to relent. Like, you need to stop the fighting. You need to have a peace negotiation. There is something on the table. The EU wants to keep this war going, and they're trying to wait Trump out until he's out of office so they can escalate this thing. The best way to help the Ukrainian people is not to have millions of them die in a pointless war here. Wait, we can go into the next section, which is going to be the Middle East, which is actually related a lot to what was going on in Mexico.
Okay, hold on.
If we have no comments.
No.
Okay. And this will be the last story before we go over to RUMBLE. Yeah.
Okay, so mostly focusing on Iran from Marinawful, quote, Iran better pay attention. Captain Fano says the U.S. is ready for air supremacy, and if the order comes, they'll destroy 100% of Iran's military.
Your assessment of where we stand with this, as President Trump refers to, a vast armada.
Well, Steve, I think right now we're seeing, as you said, that all the chess pieces are getting into the region, into the EUCOM, European Command, and Central Command's area of responsibility. So from the Eastern Mediterranean down into the Gulf of Oman. Over on Friday night, it was reported that the USS Gerald R. Ford and its carrier battle group had transited through the Strait of Gibraltar and is now in the Mediterranean Sea. In the latest reporting from air asset updates, we basically have over 350 combat aircraft that are in the region, both afloat and ashore. And more importantly, we have over 100 tankers, which allows our combat aircraft, the F-16s, the F-22s, the Strike Eagle F-15s, the F/A-18s, and the F-35s that have shorter range. Those tankers on your screen can get now fuel to be able to sustain what is called air supremacy over a combat area. Normally, we talk about air superiority, which is a temporal time and space where you have combat air control over a geographic area.
And pause it for a minute. Yeah, if they don't strike by Monday or Tuesday, it looks like they're going to have to wait to the middle of March because there's going to be too much moonlight. Usually for air operations, you want to do it in complete darkness or near darkness. I would be surprised if they strike. I think he wants to put pressure on them for an internal coup. I don't know if that's going to happen. That being said, the reason I brought this story up just to show how much military assets are in that region right now, European assets, but most of all the American assets are over there, and it makes it really hard to conduct operations in Mexico right now if they need to, if Sheinbaum asks them for help.
Air supremacy is where you can control.
Most of these assets were actually deployed off of the coast of Venezuela for a long time, which was in the direct region of Mexico.
The air at all times in that whole geographic region for a sustained long period of time. And so it seems to me that we are moving in and preparing our forces for air supremacy. And I would just say to Mr. Haas, who talked about managing, if we do a strike, we'll have to manage some kind of a deal with the Iranians. No, we're not going to manage anything. We're going to come in, and if President Trump decides to use military force, we will destroy Iran's military, 100% of it. We will take down their SRBMs, their medium-range ballistic missiles, and their naval forces and their remaining little air forces that they have, and their air defense forces. And we will sit over the top of Iran and call fires down on anybody that tries to shoot off.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as he thinks to go into Iran. And this isn't like Iraq or Afghanistan. And even that didn't turn out well in Afghanistan. It was a 20-year forever war. I don't want to see a forever war happen here. I mean, they need to focus more close to home on Mexico. That's a real threat right now. Having so many assets deployed in Ukraine and Iran as well is just, they're spread extremely, extremely thin right now.
Especially when they did claim, and in November when that national security strategy came out, they claimed they wanted to focus on the Western Hemisphere. And maybe they're just trying to tie up loose ends over there. But I mean, it also kind of popped off here while they were over there. So what are they going to do?
Okay, let's go over to RUMBLE now if we can.
So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It was very Mexico heavy today, but usually we do a lot of different subjects and topics. It's just, it was a main story today everywhere. So we did need to talk about it, especially because we live here. But thank you so much to everybody that did watch and left comments. And also we'll see you over at RUMBLE in a few seconds.